Chapter 118. Yao Qianshu only felt that his whole body was in pain. Fortunately, he had the ultimate first-wood magic power to protect his body in time, but the magic power that had just been condensed had been exhausted in order to resist the terrible heat. He supported himself to raise his head, stuffed another magic power recovery pill into his mouth, and looked in the direction of the center of the battlefield. Jidong was standing in the middle of the huge, deep pit. The flame monarch body had disappeared, but the vermilion bird inner armor was still protecting his body. The eclipse phoenix fire was floating behind him, turning into a yang fire condensation array, absorbing the remaining ultimate yang fire magic power in the air and pouring it into Jidong's body. About 10 meters away from him, Huang Liming knelt on one knee, gasping for breath. His hair, eyebrows, and clothes had all turned into charcoal, and the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar in front of him had disappeared. Huang Liming's mount, the flame lion, was lying on the edge of the big pit. Its huge and sturdy body was trembling slightly. The fire on its body had completely disappeared, leaving only a red fur. With a cry, Huang Liming spat out a mouthful of blood. His body swayed, and he almost fell. He really couldn't imagine that what happened in front of him was real. The six-crowned fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar, plus the six-crowned third Fire Heavenly Scholar, facing a Grandmaster third Fire and a First Wood Grandmaster. The final result was a complete defeat. Although Jidong's aura had been restrained a lot, it was obvious that he still had the power to fight again at this time, but Huang Liming's own internal organs had been severely injured. In order not to let the terrifying magic power of the brilliant sun all hurt himself, he paid a terrible price. Even the fire attribute magic in the body of the flame lion was extracted. The Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire released through his sure kill skill made him understand the gap between ordinary flames and this extreme yang fire. Yao Qianshu's performance before was already strong enough, but Jidong first destroyed the earth bear and then launched this attack that filled him with fear, which was much more terrifying than Yao Qianshu. In Huang Liming's view, although Jidong was a rare genius, he was only a teenager after all, and his magic power was only 3 crowns. With the restrictions of the gravity technique of the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar, it was impossible for him to compete with him. Taking a step back, even if he had any helpers, with the cooperation of himself and the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar, the characteristics of fire giving birth to Earth, even if he met a 7-crown powerhouse, let alone a young man like Jidong. But who knew that when the battle really started, he realized how wrong his judgment was. Even if the 16 whirlwind guards died in the hands of Yao Qianshu in an instant, it could not wake him and the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar up, and only one person went up. If he and the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar released their mounts at the beginning and launched an all-out attack, they would have the absolute upper hand. However, when the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar was suppressed by the ultimate first wood, a lot of magic power was consumed, and he was slightly injured before he released the Earth Bear. Their situation had already changed subtly. Before today, Huang Liming had never truly fought with Jidong before. He had only heard that Jidong had killed Ji Feng. In his opinion, that was just a coincidence. When the flame monarch body appeared on Jidong's body, Huang Liming had already sensed that something was wrong. However, Jidong's speed was just too fast, and his explosive power was just too terrifying. In just a few strikes, he had killed the Earth Bear. When he rushed up, he was faced with the flame monarch body's sure kill technique that had surpassed his limits. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun cone nail, today was the first time that he truly bloomed the powerful combat power he should have. Yao Qianshu immediately poured the huge vitality and extreme first wood magic absorbed from his yang wood condensation array in a Hyoheim to enhance him. The yang wood condensation array and the yang fire condensation array allowed his flame monarch body to be released in the first place. At the same time, when Jidong launched his attack, Yao Qianshu poured all the extreme first wood magic that he had just condensed into his body. Extreme Yang Wood and Extreme Yang Fire. The effect of this superimposed combination skill was far beyond the combination of ordinary Yang Wood and Yang Fire. At that moment, Jidong's magic had already surpassed the state of 5 crowns. Coupled with the multiple assistance of the flame monarch body, the vermilion bird inner armor, and the sun and moon double radiant gloves, it made his strength comparable to a 6-crown powerhouse in that short period of time. It was under such circumstances that Jidong launched the brilliant sun cone nail. The terrifying explosive power was by no means something that the Earth Heaven warrior, who had already consumed a lot of energy, could resist. Even if he burned his Earth Sun crown, it was still the same. Huang Liming instantly realized this, so he desperately went forward to assist, trying to save the Earth Heaven warrior's life. But who knew that at this time, Jidong would summon the Eclipse Phoenix Hua-er. This was a variable that Huang Liming had never thought of. Hua was originally a descendant of the vermilion bird. The effect of a yang fire condensation array that she instantly turned into was even better than what Jidong had released. Suddenly, besides the aura of the flame monarch, there was also the aura of the vermilion bird. It also increased the power of Jidong's extreme yang fire. The flames that were originally released were compressed to an unprecedented degree under the effect of the double condensation array, which made the killer skill look like a real entity. Even though Huang Liming used all his strength to assist the Earth Heaven warrior, and even the flaming lion rushed forward at the last moment, the instant explosive power produced by the Flame Monarch's destructive killer skill was still not something that they could resist. The Diamond Star level defense was directly blasted apart. The extreme yang fire instantly engulfed the Earth Heaven warrior's body, and the terrifying demonic power rushed towards Huang Liming through the Earth Heaven warrior. The Flaming Lion, who was originally going to help Huang Liming increase his demonic power, had already transferred its demonic power to Huang Liming to save his life. This 6-crown Earth Heaven warrior used all his strength to preserve his life and did not get engulfed by the extreme yang fire. Of course, this was also because Jidong's own strength was insufficient. If he had truly reached the 6-crown level, he would not need any enhancement at all. With his own demonic power, he only needed to release the brilliant sun all. Even if the Earth Heaven warrior was in his best state, the two of them would still be engulfed by the brilliant sun all. Even though he did not have the flame monarch body, Jidong still stood there as proud as a mountain. He looked down at Huang Liming, who was half kneeling on the ground, and slowly raised his right hand. A golden flame rose up, and he said, "Now, do you still want to take me away? So what if you're a 6-crown heaven warrior? Don't attack. I have something to say." Huang Liming hurriedly called out, "Don't talk nonsense with him. Kill him." Yao Qianshu had already climbed up and was already shouting from afar. Golden flames rose up, and Jidong had already taken a step forward. "Wait a minute, Jidong. I am not your enemy." Huang Liming called out anxiously, and with great difficulty, he gathered his breath and stood up. A trace of doubt appeared in Jidong's eyes. He was still very good at reading people. At this moment, Huang Liming's life was at stake, but the expression in his eyes was not one of panic, but of impatience. It did not seem like he was struggling at death's door, and he did not have any intention of trying to recover his demonic power. "You have been hunting me for more than 2 months, and you are the chief of the Imperial Guards of the Middle Earth Empire, and you still say that you are not my enemy?" Huang Liming smiled bitterly and said, "The first time I hunted you, I indeed wanted to capture you and hand you over to His Majesty. At that time, I was your enemy. But do you remember when you were flying away under my attack? Although I could not hurt you, I took something from your body." "What thing?" Jidong frowned slightly. Huang Liming said, "A pendant on your neck, a pendant with your name on it." Jidong's heart trembled, and he subconsciously touched his neck. That pendant was something he had obtained when he first came to this world and attached himself to Jidong's body, and it also had the 2 words Jidong on it. However, he had never paid attention to it and did not think much of it. Now that Huang Liming mentioned it, he realized that the pendant had actually disappeared without a trace. "What about the pendant?" Jidong asked indifferently. Although it was Li Ying's soul that controlled this body, he was still very curious about Jidong's background, and that pendant was the only thing that could prove Jidong's identity. Huang Liming said, "That pendant has the 2 words Jidong on it, and at the same time, It also has a special mark. Perhaps you did not pay attention to it, but don't you want to know its origin? Or should I say, don't you want to know your own background? Speak. Jidong's eyes were filled with might as he stared at Huang Liming, and the attribute suppression appeared once again. Actually, Jidong's body was not in a good condition at the moment. After unleashing such a powerful attack, he had almost used up all of his mana. It was only with Hua Er's help that he relied on the yang flames to condense a formation, that the vermilion bird armor on his body was not retracted back into his body, allowing him to maintain a certain degree of attack power. Of course, relying on the yang flames to condense a formation, his mana recovery rate was far higher than Huang Liming's, so he was not afraid of the Bing Hua Tianshi in front of him playing any tricks. Huang Liming said, "Frankly speaking, I'm also not very clear about your background, but I can be sure that your identity is not ordinary." A trace of ridicule appeared in Jidong's eyes, and he said, "Don't tell me that I am a prince of the Central Plains Empire. Even if you don't tell me, I know that Ji is the surname of the Central Plains Empire's royal family. If you want to use this to convince me to spare your life, it is impossible. You dare to use such a melodramatic plot to trick me?" Huang Liming smiled bitterly. "I was afraid that you wouldn't believe me, so I decided to take action the moment we met. I wanted to wait until I captured you before telling you these things. But now, it seems that I will not have such a chance. That's right, you are indeed a descendant of the royal family, but you are not a prince. You should be a prince." "Prince?" Jidong was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Go on." Huang Liming said, "Although I am the Imperial Guard Chief of the Central Plains Empire, my loyalty is not to the Emperor of the Central Plains Empire, but to His Highness the Prince of Equality of the Central Plains Empire. The title of Prince of Equality does not only exist in this generation. Ever since the birth of the Central Plains Empire, the Prince of Equality has existed. The Prince of Equality is also a member of the royal family. Back then, the country of the Central Plains Empire was fought for by two brothers. One of them became the emperor, while the other became the Prince of Equality. With the meaning of emperor and Prince of Equality, they have an enormous influence in the Central Plains Empire. That was why I boldly guessed that you might be related to His Highness. After I brought the pendant back to His Highness ordered me to bring you back safely at all costs. Of course, I couldn't ask His Highness about your real identity, but I can be sure that your background should be related to His Highness. That is why I boldly guessed that you might be related to the prince. After I brought the pendant back to the prince ordered me to bring you back safely at all costs. Of course, I could not ask the prince about your real identity, but I can be sure that your background is related to the prince." Huang Liming smiled. "It seems that you really do not understand the situation in the Central Plains Empire. In the Central Plains Empire, although it is ruled by the emperor, the Prince of Equality's bloodline has never been restricted by the royal family. The power that the prince possesses is not something you can imagine. You will understand when you meet the prince." Jidong faintly felt that Huang Liming should be hiding many things from the Prince of Equality, but was the pendant really related to the Prince of Equality? Or was it something that Huang Liming made up to save his life? "Sir Imperial Guard Chief, now you only need to clear up one of my doubts, and I will believe your words." "Jidong, don't." Yao Qianshu had already walked over, and when he heard Jidong's words, he could not help but remind him. Huang Liming said, "What is it? Tell me. As long as I know it, I will try my best to solve it for you." Jidong looked at the golden flames burning on his right hand and said, "Since the Prince of Equality is a prince of the Central Plains Empire, then there is no doubt that his element should be the earth element or the earth element, right? However, as you can see, I possess the fire element, and it is the ultimate fire. Tell me, why do I possess the fire element constitution even though I am related to him?" This, Huang Liming was stunned. He was indeed unable to answer this question. He was not very clear about Jidong's background, but he clearly remembered that the Prince of Equality's expression changed drastically when he saw the pendant. After giving him the order, the Prince of Equality hurriedly left for the back palace. "I'm unable to answer this question. Perhaps your element is inherited from your mother?" Huang Liming said helplessly. Ji Dong laughed a very cold laugh and said, Huang Liming, this joke is not funny at all. If my guess is correct, this Prince of Equality should be a powerful devil master. Could it be that my mother is more powerful than him? You should know that when the element is inherited, the child will usually inherit the element of the stronger one. However, after I was born, I possessed the fire element, which is balanced between yin and yang. I am a good-for-nothing. Chapter 119. The golden flame burned fiercely, and the faint image of the flame sovereign began to appear behind Ji Dong. He walked towards Huang Liming step by step, and the Bingwu primordial yang, sacred flame in his hand, was also burning more and more fiercely. He would not give Huang Liming any chance to turn the tables. Huang Liming could not answer his question, so he naturally would not choose to believe an enemy. Wait a moment, Huang Liming shouted. He had already felt that his life was in great danger. He said, Ji Dong, even if you don't believe me, I have another piece of news that I'm sure you want to know. My patience is limited. I hope you won't disappoint me this time. Ji Dong stopped and looked coldly at Huang Liming. Huang Liming's forehead was already covered with sweat. There was no one who was not afraid of death, especially someone like him who had cultivated to the level of heavenly warrior with great difficulty. He treasured his life even more. Moreover, he did not want to die without knowing why. That would be too unjust. Because of you, the Central Plains city is in chaos now, and there's a possibility that the people will be plunged into misery and suffering at any time. Huang Liming's words dropped a heavy bomb, and even Yao Qianshu couldn't help but be stunned when he heard it. People are plunged into misery and suffering because of me? I don't understand what you mean. Ji Dong said doubtfully. Huang Liming said, You came from the Yin-Yang Hall of the Heavenly STEM Academy. That is correct. Your teacher is called Zhurong. He is one of the 10 directors of the Heavenly STEM Academy. He is a director of the 3rd Fire Department. Ji Dong nodded and said yes. Huang Liming said, You also have a teacher's wife. When you were in trouble, she was not in the Central Plain City. She is a supreme expert of the Fuhua series who has the title of Tai. Hearing this, Ji Dong could not help but believe Huang Liming a little. He said, Go on. What happened to my teacher and teacher's wife? Huang Liming smiled bitterly and said, Don't worry, they're fine, but the matter started because of them. Not long after you left, your teacher's wife returned to the Heavenly Dry Academy. When she arrived, she found out that your teacher, Zhurong, was temporarily grounded in the academy. Your teacher's wife is a supreme being expert and has the exclusive title of Her Majesty Tai. Who could stop her? After she released your teacher and found out about what happened to you, she flew into a rage and directly went to the Middle Upper Empire's royal family. Hearing Huang Liming's words, a warm feeling flowed into Ji Dong's heart. The extreme yang fire burning in his hand also weakened a little. For him, teacher's wife had disregarded everything and went to the Upper Middle Empire's royal family. Teacher had actually been imprisoned. For the first time, he felt guilty for killing Ji Feng in an instant. Dong, what happened to my teacher and teacher's wife? Ji Dong asked anxiously. A trace of lingering fear appeared on Huang Liming's face as he said, Her Majesty Tai's strength is something I've never seen in my life. When she went to the imperial family of the Central Plains Empire, she only said a single sentence. She wants to see you within 3 months alive. If she sees your corpse, then she'll make the entire imperial family of the Central Plains Empire and the people of Central Plains City accompany you in death. If she doesn't see you within 3 months, she'll treat you as dead, and the outcome will be the same as before. Damn, so imposing. Yao Qianshu could not help but exclaim. Ji Dong said in shock, Teacher's wife actually made such a condition to the imperial family of the Middle Upper Empire? How is that possible? Can't the imperial family of the Middle Upper Empire explain? Huang Liming was a little speechless. Explain? Facing a supreme being expert with a special title, whose explanation would be useful? Did you think that a supreme being expert would be reasonable? In Tai's own words, what she said is reasonable. Ji Dong said, How did the imperial family react? Huang Liming smiled bitterly. What else can they do? The imperial family tried their best to explain, and at the same time, promise your teacher's wife that they will do their best to find you. Ji Dong was shocked again. The #1 empire of the continent is actually so timid? No matter how powerful my teacher's wife is, she is only one person. Huang Liming looked at Ji Dong in shock. Don't tell me you don't know the level of a supreme expert strength? They are supreme experts with the power to destroy heaven and earth. Every supreme expert has his or her own super ultimate skill, and any super ultimate skill is more than 100 times more powerful than an ordinary ultimate skill. Her Highness Tai said that she wanted to destroy the entire Central Plain city, but she wasn't joking. She definitely has the ability to do so. Ji Dong said, but if I remember correctly, the Dean of the Heavenly STEM Academy is also an Earth Element 8 Crown expert. Could it be that there is not a single supreme expert in the entire Middle Upper Empire that can compete with my teacher's wife? Huang Liming let out a sigh and said, if it was only your master's wife, perhaps the imperial family of the Upper Central Empire would have less scruples. You're right. The Central Empire is not devoid of supreme experts. The Prince of Equality from 2 generations ago was the only supreme expert in the Upper Central Empire. Now you should understand why the Prince of Equality has such a high status in the Upper Central Empire. However, your master's wife is not alone. This time, when she returned to the Central Plain City, she brought back another person. He is the elder brother of your master's wife, His Majesty Tai, another supreme expert of the present age. His cultivation is even higher than His Majesty Tai's, His Majesty Xinguang. His Majesty Xinguang has been famous for a long time. 50 years ago, he already had an exclusive title. In other words, he is your Grandmaster, the teacher of Director Zhurong of the Heavenly STEM Academy. First would holy disciple Yao, Qianshu interrupted. It sounds a little complicated, but with 2 supreme experts appearing at the same time, it is no wonder the Middle Upper Empire can't handle it. Ji Dong, I didn't expect you to involve such a powerful force. A Tai and a Shengguang. Even if the Central Plain City is the largest city in the continent, it is indeed not difficult to destroy it. 3rd fire element and 4th fire element. Who can shake the might of a supreme expert? Huang Liming nodded his head repeatedly, saying exactly. The 3 months are almost up, but except for me who vaguely knows where you are, it is impossible for the people sent by the Middle Upper Empire to find you. If you don't go back, once your teacher's wife goes crazy, the Central Plain City will be plunged into misery and suffering. That is millions of lives. I don't know if His Highness has invited Old Master back, but even if he has, it is impossible for Old Master to fight against 2 supreme experts alone. Be it official or personal, Ji Dong, you must go to the Central Plain City. Looking at Huang Lifeng, Ji Dong's eyes flickered with an uncertain light. Huang Lifeng's words had indeed moved him. He could ignore everything else, but he couldn't ignore the kindness his master and master's wife had shown him. Moreover, he absolutely didn't want to see the millions of lives in Central Plain City die because of this. Thinking up to here, Ji Dong nodded and said, looks like I really have to make a trip back to the Central Plain City. Huang Liming, I believe your word for the time being, but I won't completely believe your words. I still can't let you go now. I will temporarily imprison your mana. If the facts prove that what you said is true, I can spare you. But if you are lying to me, I will definitely make you wish you were dead. Huang Liming's expression at this moment was instead a lot calmer, saying, then that's fine. I have already told you everything I know, but I have to remind you, there is not much time left. There are still 5 days to the 3 months deadline that your teacher's wife mentioned. You have to rush back within 5 days. A supreme expert has always been a man of his word. With your teacher's wife's temper, I'm afraid. 5 days? 5 days' time was indeed extremely tight. From the New Oding Forest to the Central Plain City wasn't near. Ji Dong looked towards Yao, Qianshu, and said, since that's the case, I will return to the Central Plain City now. Money Tree, help me temporarily imprison his mana and wait for my return in Tianji City. I will return to Tianji City to meet you after I have dealt with the matters in the Central Plain City. Yao Qianshu knew that Ji Dong wanted to rely on his flying ability to rush over as soon as possible, and wouldn't be able to bring him along. He said, "You can rest assured and go. Leave this guy to me. I will also take care of that lion." While saying that, he had already walked in front of Huang Liming, harboring malicious intentions. Huang Liming was also very straightforward and didn't have the slightest intention of resisting. He first sent the flame lion away, then didn't make any defense, and allowed Yao Qianshu to seal his mana. Ji Dong slightly rested for a while, and when his mana recovered a little, he unfolded the vermilion bird's wings and soared up, flying straight in the direction of the Central Plain city. In midair, the soaring sunspell formation that he had learned condensed for the first time, a golden red light enveloped his whole body, making him look like a real fire mythical beast as he flew away at high speed. Hurrying by flying, Ji Dong believed that in less than 3 days' time, he would definitely be able to reach the Central Plain city. Relying on the soaring sun spell formation, his flying speed increased by at least 3 times. As for the mana and physical strength that he had previously consumed, he could only slowly recover on the way. 5 days later, the Central Plain city. Early in the morning, the Central Plains city was filled with an unprecedented atmosphere. In the sky, dark clouds were heavy, making people feel oppressed. The air also seemed to have become much hotter than before. Indistinctly, behind the dark clouds in the sky, there was actually a fiery red color. In the sky above the imperial palace of the Central Plains Empire, there was a total of 5 figures floating there, forming an extremely shocking scene. Among these 5 people, the person on the far left was riding on a purple thunder heaven dragon, his entire body flickering with electricity, holding a thunder battle axe, his tall and high-spirited body filled with a valiant, domineering aura. It was the Heavenly STEM Academy's Enyang Hall's first seat, Thunder Emperor Fury. Fury was already very powerful among the magic masters, but at this moment, he was the weakest among the 5 people in the sky. The purplish-blue electricity emitted from his body was unable to change the weather at all. Beside the purple Thunder Heaven Dragon, a huge red dragon with a wingspan even wider than the purple Thunder Heaven Dragon floated in the air. On the back of the huge dragon sat 2 people. The person in front was completely covered in a set of fiery red armor, the armor constantly emitting blazing energy waves. Similarly, on the back of this fire dragon, the other person was dressed in a golden red robe, emitting an aura that was not weak. In his hand was a long-handled staff, the head of which was in the shape of a dragon's head, and in his mouth was a dazzling golden pearl. This person dressed in the golden red robe was Ji Dong and Fury's teacher, Zhu Rong, the representative of the 3rd fire element among the 10 board members of the Heavenly STEM Academy. Sitting in front of Zhu Rong on the back of the fire dragon with an imposing manner, dressed in a full set of magic armor, was none other than Ji Dong's sworn brother, Zhu Yin, Zhu Rong's younger brother. The fire dragon that the 2 brothers were riding on had a cultivation as high as the 9th level, and was Zhu Rong's mount. Zhu Rong's younger brother had spent his entire life studying the forging of magic weapons, and although his strength had already reached the 7th level, he did not have a mount of his own. In the world of magic, the 2 brothers Zhu Rong and Zhu Yin were definitely characters who could shake the world with a stomp of their feet, but at this moment, they were not the main characters in this scene. Zhu Rong's expression was very respectful as he looked at the right side of his body, and Zhu Rong's younger brother was also surprisingly well-behaved, but a fierce light constantly flashed in his eyes. After Ji Dong escaped, Zhu Rong's younger brother was the most furious person. It was also because he caused a disturbance in the Heavenly STEM Academy's board of directors, and Zhu Rong supported him, that the 2 brothers were imprisoned by the board of directors, and were only released when Tai Yin Zhurong returned to the Heavenly STEM Academy. Ji Dong was his brother, and no matter what reason he had for accepting Ji Dong back then, in his heart, he had already acknowledged him as his brother. How could he not be angry that Ji Dong was forced to leave the Heavenly STEM Academy? And in the Heavenly STEM Academy, he was the one that everyone was most afraid of offending. From a certain perspective, his status was even more important than Zhu Rong's. On the right side of the fire dragon that the Zhu Rong brothers were riding on was also a fire dragon, but compared to Zhu Rong's mount, this fire dragon was much larger. From head to tail, it was already more than 30 meters long, and when it spread its wings, it was like a red cloud that covered the sky, and its entire body was emitting a golden red luster. This was a symbol of extreme power, just like how human magic masters needed to cultivate to the 9th level in order to obtain extreme magic power. Magical beasts needed to be the strongest level surpassing magical beasts in order to obtain extreme magic power. Whether in terms of size or aura, the might of this fire dragon was much stronger than Zhu Rong's mount, and from time to time, it would turn its head to look at Zhu Rong's mount, its golden red eyes filled with affection. Yes, this fire dragon was a real level surpassing magical beast, a powerful level 10 existence, the Fire Dragon King, and Zhu Rong's mount was his child. Sitting on the back of the Fire Dragon King was a middle-aged man who seemed to be around 40 years old. His dark red long hair hung loosely on his back, with only 2 strands hanging on the side of his face. His eyes were closed, and he looked handsome, with a faint layer of red light flowing under his skin. He looked like the core of the world. Among the 5 people in the sky, he was undoubtedly the real center. Yes, he was Zhu Rong's teacher, Yin Xiaorong's elder brother, and Ji Dong's ancestor. He had the title of Shengguang, and became famous 50 years ago. Shengguang, Yin Xiaorong's teacher. Yin Xiaorong was tall and slender. If he wasn't riding on the back of the Fire Dragon King, he would only look like an ordinary person. He didn't release any aura of a powerful being, and he didn't have any weapons in his hands, nor did he have any magical equipment on him. It seemed that to him, these things were all unnecessary. On the right side of Yin Xiaorong was naturally his sister, Zhu Rong's wife, Tai Yin Xiaorong. At this moment, Yin Xiaorong was sitting on a big blue snake, its whole body emitting a faint black flame. Its wings were spread, and its cold eyes constantly revealed a trace of violent aura. It was the divine beast of the 4th fire, the flying serpent. Chapter 120. Victorious time, Yin Xiaoyang, Tai Yin Xiaorong, 8-crown Bing Hua, Celestial Zhurong, 7-crown Bing Hua Master Zhuyin, 6-crown Yang Lei Tianshi Fury. These 5 people and 4 beasts floated in the air. Even in the 5 elements continent, it was a combination that could shock the universe. The 3 giant dragons were at the 8th rank, the 9th rank, and the 10th rank respectively. In addition, there was a fire divine beast, flying serpent, which surpassed the 10th rank. The 2 supreme martial artists who had their own titles were so powerful that it made people gasp in amazement. The haze and pressure that the Central Plains city was suffering at this time was also because of them. The dark clouds in the sky were the result of the condensation of the large fire elements. Although Yin Xiaoyang and Yin Xiaorong did nothing, their aura alone was enough to change the weather. This was the pressure of a supreme martial artist. On the ground, the lineup representing the Central Earth Empire was also quite impressive. There were 4 people standing at the front. The Emperor of the Central Earth Empire, Ji Yunlu, and a middle-aged man in his 40s wearing yellow robe stood in the middle. The Dean of the Heavenly STEM Academy, Ji Mingxian, stood beside the middle-aged man in the yellow robe with a respectful expression. In addition, there was an ordinary-looking man in gold who looked extremely profound standing on the other side. Behind them, there were at least hundreds of powerful magic masters. Such a lineup almost gathered more than half of the Yin and Yang magician's strength. But at this time, everyone's expression was very solemn. Except for the Earth element, the other directors of the Heavenly STEM Academy did not participate, unless it involved their own interests and they couldn't escape. Who would be willing to be enemies with 2 supreme masters? Yin Xiaorong held her cane in her hand and pointed it at the people of the upper middle empire below. She said with a cold expression, "Where is he?" The Emperor of the Central Earth Empire, Ji Yunlu, said loudly, "Your Holiness Tai, can you come down for a talk?" Yin Xiaorong snorted and said, "There's nothing to talk about. I just want to ask you, where is Ji Dong?" A trace of anger flashed in Ji Yunlu's eyes. As the Emperor of the continent's #1 empire, he was reprimanded like this, but couldn't do anything. This kind of pain was imaginable. He said, "I'm sorry, Your Holiness Tai. Although I've sent people of the Empire to do their best, I still haven't found Ji Dong." The coldness in Yin Xiaorong's eyes intensified, and he said, "Since that's the case, there's nothing more to say." Raising the blue Dharma armor in his hand, a thick and deep black flame suddenly burst forth. Ding Si's netherworld spirit fire had already filled the air in the blink of an eye. The sky immediately darkened, and the faces of the people from the upper middle empire below changed drastically. "Zhao Rong, wait. Can you listen to me?" The middle-aged man, standing next to Ji Yunlu, suddenly said. Yin Xiaorong said coldly, "What is there to say? In the span of 3 months, not a single person could be found in the vast Central Plains Empire? Ji Dong is but a triple-crowned devil master. He must have been harmed by you. Ji Changxin, if you are not convinced, you can come up and fight. We are both exclusive title holders. We haven't seen each other for many years. Let me see if you have improved." The middle-aged man who was addressed as Ji Changxin was the only supreme being expert in the upper middle empire, the owner of the earth element exclusive title, Heavenly Dipper, Ji Changxin. Ji Changxin frowned slightly and said, "We are all old friends. Brother Zhaoyang, can you let your sister calm down and listen to me?" Yin Zhaoyang, who had his eyes closed all this while, said indifferently, "Brother Zhaoyang, you should know that I have been by the sea for 10 years. His gentle voice sounded very strange. Compared to Yin Xiaorong's fiery temper, the calm and composed Zhaoyang was what these experts from the Central Plains Empire were most worried about. Ji Changxin said, "There must be a reason for Brother Zhaoyang to break his vows. I also just rushed over after hearing that your brother and sister suddenly made a big fuss. I don't know what happened. However, I have already asked His Majesty in private, and Ji Dong was indeed not found. Furthermore, Ji Dong killed the imperial grandson because of a small matter. We don't seem to be in the wrong in this matter." Yin Xiaorong said disdainfully, "You're not in the wrong? Dozens of Yin Yang Hall disciples were present at the time. Why don't you ask around and find out who is in the wrong? If it wasn't for Ji Yifeng's provocation, Ji Dong would have attacked him. Moreover, it was a fair challenge. Ji Yifeng couldn't withstand Ji Dong's attack and died. Who can you blame? Ji Changxin, I must remind you that your imperial grandson, Ji Yifeng, is the second seat of the Yin Yang Hall. His magic power is level 58, while Ji Dong's magic power had just broken through to the 3rd crown. Under such circumstances, he was still killed in one blow. It only proves that his skills are not good enough." Ji Changxin's expression changed. He looked at Hyoheim and Yunlu and said, "Is that so?" Ji Yunlu's expression twisted slightly. He looked at the Heavenly STEM Academy's principal, his grandfather, Ji Mingxian, as if asking for help. Ji Mingxian coughed. Hyoheim said, "Big brother, the matter is like this. Therefore, we didn't intend to pursue Ji Dong any further. The Empire couldn't find any traces of him. Otherwise, no matter how immature Yunlu is, he wouldn't dare to joke around with the survival of the Empire." Yin Xiaorong laughed and said, "Ji Mingxian, stop pretending to be a good person here. You didn't make things difficult for Ji Dong? If it wasn't for Fury's cleverness and quickly sending Ji Dong away, I'm afraid I would only see a corpse when I returned. I haven't settled the account of you imprisoning my husband and uncle. Stop talking nonsense here." Ji Changxin sighed and said, "I didn't want to interfere in this matter, but Xiaorong, you're too overbearing. This is the territory of the Empire of the Central Plains. No matter who is right or wrong in this matter, you can't use the millions of people of the Central Plains city as a hostage. No matter how outstanding your disciple is, he's just one person. Don't tell me you want the millions of people of the Central Plains city to die with him." Yin Xiaorong was enraged and said, "One person? You make it sound so easy. Find me a disciple with dual attributes of yin and yang. This disciple of mine was born with dual flames and is the future hope of our fire system. He's the leader of the army for the next several hundred years. So what if millions of people die with him? Ji Changxin, you don't need to argue with me. I won't let this matter rest today." Ji Changxin looked at Yin Zhaoyang and said, "Brother Zhaoyang, do you also want to see millions of people die? Dual flames of ultimate strength is indeed rare, but right now, your grand disciple's life and death are unknown. No one can be sure if something has happened to him. How about this? I'm willing to use a level 9 darkness crystal crown to apologize to you and your sister, and we'll let this matter rest. If the Empire finds Ji Dong in the future, we'll send him to you at the first instant. Hearing the words level 9 darkness crystal crown, Yin Xiaorong couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. The rarity of this item was even above that of a supreme being expert. For Ji Chongxin to be willing to take it out as an apology, it was obvious that he had been forced to the extreme. Yin Xiaorong said faintly, "Brother Chongxin, I know that you've already given in and given me and my sister enough face. Logically speaking, I shouldn't continue to make things difficult for the Empire of Central Plains, and I wouldn't even want this crystal crown of yours. However, this child, Ji Dong, is extremely important to the future of the fire system and is also my direct disciple. The reason why Xiaorong was able to invite me here was because of these 4 words, and I'll give these 4 words to you now. If Ji Dong is really in your hands now, this will be your last chance." The 4 words that Xiaorong told me back then were embryonic form of chaos. Hearing the 4 words embryonic form of chaos, the other people on the side of the Empire of Central Plains were still fine, but Ji Chongxin and Ji Mingxuan's expressions changed at the same time. Ji Mingxian even cried out involuntarily, "Impossible this! How is this possible?" Yin Xiaorong said coldly, "Impossible? Have you forgotten the scene where all the elements in the Central Plains city were sucked dry that day? The explanation I gave you at that time was that I was experimenting with a super ultimate technique. Now I can tell you that at that time, it was the moment when Ji Dong broke through to the Triple Crown and the embryonic form of chaos appeared." Ji Chongxin's expression turned ugly as he muttered, "Embryonic form of chaos. Embryonic form of chaos. Brother Xiaorong, I understand now. If this child really has the embryonic form of chaos, then he's not only the hope of your fire system, but also the future of our radiant 5 elements mainland. However, I have no way to prove that he's still alive. Although Chongxin isn't as good as your brother and sister, for the sake of the millions of civilians in the Central Plains city, I have no choice but to ask the 2 of you for advice today." When Yin Xiaorong said the 4 words embryonic form of chaos, he already understood that today's battle was unavoidable. There was no room for negotiation. As one of the possessors of the exclusive title, he couldn't be more clear about the meaning of the 4 words embryonic form of chaos. Wait a moment. At this moment, the golden-clothed, middle-aged man who hadn't spoken among the 4 people standing in the front row suddenly spoke. Although this golden-clothed, middle-aged man had an ordinary appearance, his temperament was solemn, even more so than the emperor of the Central Plains Empire, Ji Yunlu. Ji Chongxin looked at him and said, "Yunsheng, what else do you have to say?" Ji Yunsheng sighed and said, "Doomed fate, doomed fate. Grandfather, I have a way to prove that Ji Dong has indeed not been found or harmed by the Empire." "Oh." Ji Chongxin was slightly surprised and angrily rebuked. "Since you have a way to prove it, why didn't you say so earlier?" Ji Yunsheng revealed a bitter smile and said, "Grandfather, this matter is related to the family scandal. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I really can't say it." In the air, Yin Xiaorong coldly snorted and said, "Stop acting here. Prince of Equality, I'd like to hear what evidence you have." That's right. This middle-aged man called Ji Yunsheng, who looked to be in his 50s, was the current Prince of Equality of the Central Plains Empire. Ji Yunsheng bowed slightly to Yin Xiaorong and said, "Your Holiness Xingguang, Your Holiness Tai, my evidence is very simple, and that is Ji Dong's identity. I'm afraid that even you don't know about his identity. I can confirm that Ji Dong is my direct grandson, that is, my grandfather's great-great-great-grandson." Hearing this, Yin Xiaorong was stunned for a moment, and Yin Xiaorong also slightly frowned. With Yin Xiaorong around, Zhu Yin and Zhu Rong didn't dare to say a word, let alone fury. "What did you say?" Ji Chongxin looked at Ji Yunsheng in shock and said, "Yunsheng, what exactly is going on?" "It came from Ji Dong." and his name is engraved on it. The image of the two lions on this jade tablet is exclusive to my Prince Pingding's bloodline. Just this tablet alone is enough to prove Ji Dong's identity. He is my long-lost grandson. When the Empire was pursuing him, they obtained this jade tablet, but Ji Dong managed to escape. He has the ability to fly, and I'm sure both your highnesses are aware of this. Yin Xiaorong waved his right hand, and a black flame swept down, turning into a ring. Even with the powerful burning ability of the Dingxi Dark Spirit Fire, the jade token was not damaged at all, and he drew it into his own hand. When Ji Dong was cultivating, Yin Xiaorong had seen this jade token before. She looked at it carefully and then threw it to Zhu Rong. Zhu Rong nodded at her and said, "It is indeed something from Ji Dong." On the ground, Ji Yunsheng continued, "Your Holiness, since I know that Ji Dong is my grandson, how can I not do my best to find him, let alone harm him? Your Holiness, forgive me for saying something disrespectful, but there is nothing that I don't know about in the Empire of Central Plains. Therefore, I can tell you with certainty that Ji Dong is still nowhere to be found. According to the information sent by my subordinates, the last place he was seen was Nuoding Forest." Yin Xiaorong said in a low voice, "Since Ji Dong is your grandson, why is he an orphan?" Just as Ji Yunsheng was about to open his mouth to explain, suddenly, a clear voice came from afar. "Madam, Ji Dong is here. Please don't make a big fuss." Ji Dong. The sudden appearance of this name, which affected all the higher-ups of the Empire of Central Plains, immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. Even Ji Zhongxin could not help but rise into the air. A diamond-like luster enveloped his body, and he stepped into the air. He had used his own powerful magic to forcibly push his body into the air. From a north of the Central Plains city, a figure leaped towards them like a star. Ji Yunlu timely ordered the soldiers in charge of guarding to let him pass, and soon the figure came close. Facing the people in the air, Ji Dong knelt down in the direction of Yin Xiaorong and Zhurong, saying, "Teacher, madam, Ji Dong has made you worry." This kneel was sincere. A man's knees were like gold. For someone as proud as Ji Dong to be willing to kneel like this, it could be seen how touched he was at this moment. For his sake, teacher and madam were actually willing to become enemies with an empire. This feeling was worth him kneeling. "It's good that you're fine. Child, quickly get up." When Yin Xiaorong saw Ji Dong, he immediately felt relieved. He waved his staff again, and the Dingxi underworld spiritual fire engulfed Ji Dong's body, bringing him to the back of his Dingxi divine beast, winged serpent. Ji Yunsheng looked at Ji Dong with a burning gaze and said, "You came at the right time." Ji Dong's background is actually, just as the Prince of Equality was about to speak of Ji Dong's background, a chill surged in Ji Dong's eyes, and he said coldly, "Say no more, I don't want to hear it. I only know that before I could remember, I was already an orphan. From now on, I will still be an orphan. I only have teacher and madam, no parents, no relatives." Chapter 121. In the face of Ji Yunsheng, Ji Dong's response was cold and resolute. There was no room for negotiation, not for anything else, but for the tragic fate of the original owner of his body in this life. He knew very well that no matter what kind of background this body had before he took possession of it, there was only one thing that was certain, and that was that Ji Dong's soul had long died. If not for his soul taking possession of the body, perhaps only white bones would be left of the body. Ji Dong did not want to hear any explanation from Ji Yunsheng. No matter what happened, the child was innocent. However, Ji Dong's memory told him that when he was 5 years old, he had become an orphan and could only live on the streets, relying on begging for a living. Based on this alone, he did not have a good impression of the Prince of Equality. Ji Yunsheng did not know that the real Ji Dong had long died. Although what he saw now was Ji Dong's body, his soul belonged to the god of wine, Li Ying, who had come from another world. Hearing Ji Dong's words, Ji Yunsheng's expression involuntarily changed. If it was not in front of Yin Xiaoyang and Yin Xiaorong, given his status as the Prince of Equality, he would have directly exploded. However, at this moment, he could only endure it, From a change in Ji Chongxin's expression after hearing Yin Xiaoyang's words, as well as the fact that the two supreme experts were willing to go against the Central Plains Empire for him, it could be seen how important Ji Dong was. Ji Dong, I know you have suffered a lot, but you have the blood of the Ji family in your body. I can be sure that you are a descendant of the Ji family. I am your biological grandfather. Biological grandfather? Originally, Ji Dong's expression was cold. He did not want to be entangled here for too long, but when he heard Ji Yunxing's words, the light in his eyes was immediately filled with ruthlessness. You are my biological grandfather? Let me tell you, Ji Dong died a long time ago. He died when you abandoned him 10 years ago. You are my biological grandfather? Then, let me ask you, when I was begging on the streets, where were you? When I was starving, where were you? Where were you when I didn't have clothes covering my body? When I was ridiculed as a good-for-nothing, your biological grandfather, the Prince of Equality, was enjoying wealth and splendor. When did you ever remember that you had a grandson called Ji Dong? Let me tell you, the blood that flows in my body is not the blood of your Ji clan. It is my own blood. My blood is at least hot. It is boiling hot. And you so-called royal relatives, your so-called blood is only cold. Towards you, there is only hatred in my heart. Everyone present was an expert. Ji Dong was only 15 years old, but his words were resolute and powerful. Ji Yunxing could not refute him at all. The supreme expert heavenly dipper Ji Chongxin, who was floating in the air, also had an ugly expression on his face, but he could not say anything. Victorious Time looked at Ji Dong and nodded silently. He said to Hioheim, Brother Chongxin, you heard what this child said. Since Ji Dong has been found, today's matter is over. I apologize to everyone for causing trouble for your country. Fortunately, your country did not suffer any losses. Of course, we will also give your country an explanation. Zhaorong, from now on, you will leave the Heavenly STEM Academy. Zhurong, Zhuyin, and Fury, the same goes for you. As for the director of the Heavenly STEM Academy's fire department, let the Southern Fire Empire reassign him. If the Heavenly STEM Academy cannot accommodate my fire department, I can represent the Southern Fire Empire to order the fire department to withdraw. You can't, Ji Chongxin hurriedly said. If the fire department really withdrew from the Heavenly STEM Academy, then the continent's #1 academy, which was born for the Holy Evil battlefield, would really be disbanded. Brother Chaoyang, you don't have to do this. This is just a misunderstanding. Yin Xiaoyang shook his head and said, Brother Chongxin, no matter what, Ji Dong also killed your country's imperial grandson. Even though it was a competition, it still hurt your country's feelings. If the Heavenly STEM Academy can still accommodate my fire department, then we will continue to contribute. Today's matter is over. We will take our leave. Ji Zhongxin's expression was a little ugly. The others couldn't even interrupt. It sounded like Yin Xiaoyang was very reasonable, but this was on the premise that Ji Dong returned safely. Before this victorious Light Highness had never opposed Yin Xiaorong's proposal to destroy the entire city. What was reason? At their level, absolute strength was the law. With the existence of two Supreme Being experts, what else could Ji Chongxin say? He could only helplessly nod his head and said to Yin Choyang, Brother Choyang, don't worry. The position of the fire department in the Heavenly STEM Academy will never change. I promise you here. Yin Choyang nodded and said, That's for the best. Let's go. As he said this, he waved his hand and stepped on the rank 10 Fire Dragon King to soar into the sky. His speed did not seem fast, but when this super demonic beast moved, the dark clouds in the sky automatically parted, revealing a bright red sky. His imposing manner was so strong that the sky and earth changed color. Anyone who saw this scene would remember this scene deeply. Even a fire dragon serpent didn't go first. Even though its rank was higher, with the existence of Yin Choyang, it had no choice but to restrain its arrogance. This was strength, the strength of a Supreme Being expert. Yin Xiaorong followed closely behind. The flying dragon serpent carried her and Ji Dong, followed by Zhurong, the Zhu brothers, and the rank 9 fire dragon. Finally, it was the Thunder Emperor Fury's turn. When they left, they couldn't help but take a look at the Heavenly STEM Academy that they had lived in for so many years, before flying away. Watching them leave, Heavenly Dipper Ji Changshin's expression was extremely cold. No one in the Central Plains Empire could tell what this supreme being expert was thinking. Slowly landing on the ground, without waiting for Ji Changshin to speak, Ji Mingxian had already walked up and said, "Big brother, are we just going to let it go like this? Yifeng is the only successor of the imperial family, the only son of the direct bloodline of the imperial family. Are we just going to let it go like this?" Ji Changshin swept a cold glance at him. Then his gaze fell on the emperor, Ji Yunlu, and said, "The descendants you have taught well, with Yin Xiaoyang and Yin Zhaorong's status, they disdain lying. Mingxian, you actually dare to hide the cause of this matter from me. If we don't let it go like this, what do you want? Don't you know Yin Xiaoyang's great name?" Back then, he was the only one who no one dared to challenge in the competition for the 10 exclusive divine weapons. Today, 50 years later, there are less than 3 supreme-level experts who can contend against him. Even if he is here alone today, he is not someone I can resist. If you want revenge, you should first weigh your own strength. In the handling of this matter, you have disappointed me greatly. Yin Xiaoyang is already giving me face by letting it go just like that. Why don't you think about how much the Heavenly STEM Academy has lost without the brothers Zhurong and Zhuyan? Ji Mingxuan's expression flickered, but facing Ji Changshin, she really didn't dare to flare up. Although Ji Yunlu was the emperor, at this moment, he could only clench his fists tightly, not daring to refute in the slightest. Ji Changshin's gaze turned to Ji Yunsheng, and the coldness in his eyes intensified. He said, "Yunsheng, come with me. Regarding the matter of Ji Dong, if you can't give me a convincing reason, then you can forget about being the Prince of Equality. I, Ji Changshin, am also a hero in the 5-element continent. Today, I am being scolded by a descendant, yet I have no reason to refute." "Good, very good." Ji Yunsheng looked at Ji Changshin in silence. As the grandson of the first wife, he knew very well that his grandfather was truly enraged at this moment. Although the siblings, Yin Chuyang and the others had already left, the atmosphere in the Central Plains Empire's palace was still like the calm before the storm. No matter how dissatisfied he was, Ji Mingxian could only endure it. Even though his cultivation was only a step away from the Supreme Being realm, it was this step that made him unable to even open his mouth to refute. The Fire Dragon King, the 4th Fire Divine Beast Soaring Serpent, the 9th rank Fire Dragon, and the 8th rank Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon flew in the air. Even though they were extremely fast, sitting on their backs, one couldn't feel any wind at all. In order not to startle the world, under the lead of Yin Xiaoyang, the 4 divine beasts flew high up in the sky, making it very difficult to see them from below. In the blink of an eye, they had already left the Central Plain city. At this moment, Yin Zhaorong's face was already full of smiles. There was no longer the cold frown from before, as if he was prepared to destroy a city. "Teacher's wife, for my matter, you and teacher." Ji Dong sat in front of Yin Zhaorong. The extreme Yin fire aura emitted from the soaring serpent made him feel very comfortable. Yin Zhaorong smiled and said, "Little Dong Dong, why are you still angry with teacher's wife? Not to mention that you are the future hope of our fire system. Even if you are just the disciple of the old man, we can't let anyone hurt you easily. However, what you said just now is not right. Who said you are an orphan? Aren't you, teacher, and teacher's wife of family?" Ji Dong turned his head to look at Yin Zhaorong, his lips tightly pursed. He wouldn't say any words of gratitude, but his eyes had already conveyed everything he wanted to say to this Tai Supreme. Yin Zhaorong patted Ji Dong's shoulder and said, "All right, little Dong Dong, don't say anything. This time, you're lucky that you weren't harmed by those guys from the Central Plains Empire. I should have taken you with me back then, and so many things wouldn't have happened." At this moment, the Fire Dragon King that was flying in the front stopped, and the other 3 demonic beasts also stopped one after another. Yin Zhaorong closed his eyes again and said lightly, "Zhurong, you and Zhuyin go back to the Southern Fire Empire to deal with this matter and choose suitable candidates to enter the Heavenly STEM Academy. Although this time we are not on good terms with the Central Plains Empire, the Heavenly STEM Academy is of great importance. We can't lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. You will stay in the Southern Fire Empire for the time being and establish a fire system academy. Zhurong, you will be the dean and recruit talents from the Southern Fire Empire. Yes, teacher. Although Zhurong and Yin Zhaorong often quarreled when they were together, when facing Yin Zhaorong, he was as respectful as a child. On the other hand, Zhu Yin wanted to say something, but when he looked at Yin Zhaorong, he hesitated and didn't dare to speak. Zhu Yin, what's the problem? Although Yin Zhaorong closed his eyes, he still seemed to be able to control everything that happened around him. Zhu Yin grinned and said, Teacher, look, my brother Jidong has also been found, but his strength is still insufficient. I plan to forge a set of magic weapons for him. Also, I haven't seen you for so many years, and I want to listen to your teachings again. Can I go with you? Yin Zhaorong revealed an imperceptible smile on his face and said, You are still so unmotivated. Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? You want to use Jidong's ultimate dual fire to forge a magic weapon, right? Zhu Yin said awkwardly. Teacher's eyes are like torches. Nothing can be hidden from you. Yin Zhaorong thought for a moment and said, Then you come with me. You go with Fury's purple thunder, heavenly dragon. Zhurong, if anything happens to the Southern Fire Empire, crush this scroll. As he spoke, a faint golden light flashed, and an item appeared in Zhurong's hand. It was a palm-sized golden scroll. Zhurong did not ask anything and only glanced at Yin Zhaorong. Yin Zhaorong grinned and said, What? Damn old man, you can't bear to part with me? Zhurong did not dare to lose his temper in front of Yin Zhaorong. Glaring at Yin Zhaorong, Hyoheim said, Jidong, you will follow Grandmaster to train this time. Everything must be stable. Remember not to be impatient. Zhurong usually only showed dignity, but at this moment, Jidong clearly saw the light of kindness in his eyes. He said, Teacher, I will. Zhurong nodded in satisfaction and bid farewell to Yin Zhaorong. Zhu Yin, on the other hand, leaped into the air excitedly and landed on the back of the purple thunder heavenly dragon. Sitting behind Fury, Zhurong commanded the 9th grade fire dragon to spread its wings and fly towards the south. Yin Zhaorong said indifferently, Let's go too. Grandmaster, wait a moment. I still have something to deal with, Jidong suddenly said. Oh, what is it? Yin Zhaorong asked calmly. Jidong said, I have a companion waiting for me in Tianji City. Thanks to him, I was able to fend off the people from the Central Plains Empire. One of the demon masters who chased us was also sealed there. Now that the matter is over, it's time to let that person go. Yin Zhaorong said, Pass the matter to Fury. Fury, Zhu Yin, go and deal with this matter, then meet us in the EC. You know the place. Finally finding Jidong, he clearly had no intention of letting Jidong out of his sight. Jidong told Fury and Zhu Yin about Yao Qinshu's appearance, and the remaining 5 people split up again. The siblings Yin Zhaorong and Yin Zhaorong rode the 2 divine beasts and brought Jidong east, while Fury and Zhu Yin rode the purple thunder heavenly dragon towards Tianji City in the northeast. This time, Jidong rushed over from Nuoding Forest. Originally, the journey would only take 3 days, but because it was his first time flying at such a high speed in the air, plus the excessive consumption from the battle with Huang Liming and the Wutu Heaven Scholar, he still did not reach the speed he had expected. On the way, he encountered a few flying demonic beasts that came looking for trouble, so it took him 5 days to arrive at the Central Plain City at the crucial moment, avoiding this massacre. Just as he entered the Central Plain City, he saw an unforgettable scene in the sky. 4 demonic beasts, 5 experts. Just this alone was enough to suppress the entire Central Plains Empire. This was power. Chapter 122. Yin Zhaorong and Yin Zhaoyang gave Jidong the opposite feeling. Tai Yin Zhaorong, who had the ultimate Yin fire, made Jidong feel like a raging fire, while Shengguang Yin Zhaoyang, who was the supreme being of the 3rd fire element, rarely spoke along the way. His personality was indifferent, just like an immortal. The 2 siblings had different personalities, but it seemed to be somewhat incompatible with the magic they possessed. When the 10th rank mythological beast spread out its body, it could only be described as traveling thousands of miles in a flash. The two mythological beasts were completely flying above the clouds. One could not feel their flying speed at all. One could only see the rolling white clouds under their feet. This was obviously far from being comparable to Fury's purple thunder heavenly dragon, let alone Ji-Dong's own wings spread out. Sitting on the back of the fourth fire mythological beast flying serpent, Ji-Dong only had a feeling that it was like sitting on a plane in his previous life. Even if the speed was not as fast as the plane, it was probably not much different. With nothing to do, Ji-Dong simply practiced on the back of the flying serpent. He had yin and yang dual fire magic. Sitting on the back of the fourth fire mythological beast, he did not need the help of the five elements array at all. The surroundings were full of rich fire elements. Soon, he entered the state of practice. The yin and yang vortex in his body rotated slowly, absorbing the magic elements of the outside world. The liquid yin and yang vortex seemed to grow every time it rotated. At the same time, it also stealthily moistened the fire of chaos in the core. Ever since entering the underground palace, Ji-Dong's understanding of the fire element C and D elements had undoubtedly deepened after memorizing the 9 major magic arrays of the fire element C and D elements, especially the perception of the elements in the outside world, as well as the feeling of adjusting and controlling one's own mana elements. He had also comprehended many things. With the integration of the two great sovereigns' thoughts with him, the sun and moon patterns in his palms had all disappeared. The memory of the two great sovereigns had also become a part of Ji-Dong's memory. Their will had also merged with Ji-Dong's will, forming an extremely proud will. After an unknown amount of time, Ji-Dong woke up from the state of practice because he felt the change of the fire elements in the outside world. When he opened his eyes, the surroundings were no longer misty. Yin Xiaorong's voice sounded, "We have arrived. Xiaodong, it's time for you to finish your practice. At such a young age, it's your first time riding the heavenly stem mythological beast. Instead of being curious, you calmly practice. You really are a freak." Ji-Dong gazed into the distance, and the first thing he felt was shock, because what he saw was a boundless ocean. The dark blue seawater was like a boundless, enormous sapphire. Within his field of vision, the Flame Dragon King and the Soaring Serpent had both retracted their wings and were slowly descending towards the shore. The smell of the ocean mixed with a slight, fishy smell assaulted his nostrils. Ever since he came to this world, this was the first time Ji-Dong saw the sea. At this moment, he felt as if his chest had become even more vast, and the chaotic fire in his chest also slightly throbbed. In the blink of an eye, the two mythological beasts had already landed on the soft beach. Without seeing how Yin Xiaoyang did anything, he had already appeared on the beach. He patted the Dragon King's body and said gently, "It's been hard on you, old friend." The Dragon King groaned and said, "Old friend, it's rare for you to have the mood to go out for a walk. There's nothing hard about it. However, I really don't like the seaside. I'll be leaving first." Yin Xiaoyang sighed softly and said, "Old friend, I know you are still worried about that matter, but it has already been so many years. Ever since I met you, you have always been searching. Don't be too stubborn." The Dragon King's lantern-like huge eyes revealed a faint sorrow. "Let's not talk about this, old friend. When you need me, call me at any time." As it spoke, the Dragon King spread its wings and pushed off the ground with its hind legs. Its huge body had already leapt several hundred meters into the air with just the force of its jump. It spread its wings, and with just 2 flaps, it had already disappeared into the clouds. Yin Xiaoyang walked into the seemingly unremarkable little courtyard and entered the thatched cottage in the center. Yin Xiaorong brought Ji-Dong and jumped down from the soaring serpent's back. At this moment, at a close distance, Ji-Dong could clearly see the soaring serpent's appearance. The soaring serpent had no feet, and its entire body was dark blue with fine scales. Its eyes were the same color, and the wings on its back were somewhat like those of a bat. Its body length was only about 10 meters or so. Compared to the Dragon King, its aura was much inferior. However, it was one of the 10 heavenly stems mythological beasts, and in terms of rank, it was above the Dragon King. It was a mythological beast in the present world in the truest sense. Jidong was looking at the soaring serpent, and the soaring serpent was also looking at him. Its dark blue eyes moved closer to Jidong, and its nose twitched slightly. Little fellow, you have the aura of the vermilion bird on you, as well as an aura of the same origin as mine. Zhaorong, I want to stay behind and be intimate with this little fellow. Zhaorong smiled and said, that couldn't be better. With you here, I don't even need to help him condense the elements. Jidong, why haven't you greeted Senior Soaring Serpent? Jidong bowed slightly to the Soaring Serpent and said, greetings, Senior Soaring Serpent. The Soaring Serpent also nodded at Hyoheim and said, I haven't seen the vermilion bird for a long time. Is she still sealed in the Earth Spirit Mountain range? Jidong said, that's right. I heard from Senior Vermilion Bird that the heavenly stems divine beasts are all sealed in various parts of the Five Elements mainland. Why? The Soaring Serpent chuckled and said, why am I fused with Zhaorong and not sealed, right? Jidong nodded his head. When he heard that Zhaorong had the Soaring Serpent as a mount, he already had this doubt. The Soaring Serpent said, speaking of which, I am the only heavenly stems divine beast that hasn't been sealed. Because I have a flaw that they don't have, that's why I have such preferential treatment. From ancient times until now, in the current world, I'm afraid that there isn't any creature that can compare to my age. Even I don't know how many years I've lived. Although I have a much longer lifespan than the other heavenly stems divine beasts, I can't give birth to descendants. It's precisely because I've lived from ancient times until now that I haven't been sealed. Hearing the Soaring Serpent's words, Jidong couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. From ancient times until now, how many years did it take? The seemingly inconspicuous fire divine beast in front of him actually had such a long life. Let's not talk about his strength first, but this ancient memory was an extremely valuable asset. The wings on the Soaring Serpent's back retracted, actually disappearing into the snake's scales. At this moment, he looked like a deep blue serpent. With a twist of his body, he had already slithered in front of Jidong, circling around his body. At the Vermilion Bird's place, you've obtained many benefits. The Soaring Serpent exclaimed. Jidong didn't plan to hide it and said, yes, Senior Vermilion Bird has given me a lot of help. The Soaring Serpent's deep eyes shone with the light of wisdom. But to her, it's all worth it. Come out, little fellow. As he spoke, a faint black light shone from the top of the Soaring Serpent's head. The Vermilion Bird bracelet on Jidong's right hand automatically lit up. In the midst of the golden light, Hor had already flapped her wings and floated in the air, looking at the Soaring Serpent with an unfriendly gaze. Zhaorong said in surprise, Vermilion Bird? Jidong, you actually accepted a Vermilion Bird as a magical beast companion? No, that's not right. How can a Vermilion Bird's body be so small? She could sense the extreme fire-type magical power from the Eclipse Phoenix Hua-Er's body, so she naturally wouldn't mistake it for a flamingo. The Soaring Serpent chuckled and said, Zhaorong, you guessed correctly. This little fellow is the Vermilion Bird, just a descendant of the Vermilion Bird. It looks like the torment of the solar eclipse fire has finally ended. Jidong has helped the Vermilion Bird so much. No wonder she has given you so many benefits and even has a child following you. She must be borrowing the extreme dual fire magical power in your body to nourish herself and improve her weak constitution. Although he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, the Soaring Serpent's 10,000 years of memory was extremely shrewd. He had practically deduced the entire truth of the matter. Hua let out a phoenix cry in the air, glaring angrily at the Soaring Serpent. She rose up a few notches, refusing to come down no matter what. Senior Soaring Serpent has no ill intentions. Come, Jidong said to but for some reason, the usually obedient refused to come down. The Soaring Serpent chuckled and said, there's no need to force her. Although the Vermilion Bird and I are both fire-type heavenly stems divine beasts, we are also natural enemies. I have fought with countless generations of Vermilion Birds, and this is an innate repulsion between our auras. Although this little fellow's strength is weak, it is the same. Unfortunately, the Vermilion Bird is too proud. She refused to accept my help no matter what I said. Otherwise, this solar eclipse in fire would be nothing to me. If I had dealt with it 3,000 years ago, this little fellow wouldn't have to suffer so much. But the vermilion bird is also quite intelligent. She knows that by letting her stay by your side, she can nourish herself. If your strength can become a little stronger, perhaps this little fellow's constitution can be restored. Unfortunately, she is no longer a heavenly stems divine beast. Jidong nodded and said, Senior Vermilion Bird gave her the title of Eclipse Phoenix. Eclipse Phoenix? What a good Eclipse Phoenix, Yin and Yang dual fire Phoenix. It is indeed strange and a perfect match for you. Seeing how close this little fellow's aura is to you, I'm afraid that even without a contract, she will not leave you. Although she will gain many benefits from you, as long as you are alive, she will not leave you. This can be considered her repayment to you, a fair trade. If I were the Vermilion Bird, I would also make the same choice. All right, you can stay here for now. Yin Xiaoyang is a human that even I fear. Learning from him will be of great benefit to you. Zhao Rong, and I will also help you. If your embryonic chaos form can awaken, then you will be the future of the entire fire type. Zhao Rong, I'm going to play in the sea first. It's been a long time since I've eaten fresh seafood. Amidst the sinister laughter, Jidong only saw a flash of blue light before his eyes. In the next moment, he had already lost track of the soaring serpent. Only when the soaring serpent disappeared without a trace did her descend from the sky. As if she had been frightened, she immediately burrowed back into the vermilion bird bracelet and disappeared. At this moment, Yin Chuyang's indifferent voice came from the wooden house. Zhao Rong, Jidong, come in. Yin Zhaorong led Jidong into the courtyard. This courtyard was not large, with only 3 extremely simple-looking wooden houses. As it was very close to the sea, one could clearly hear the sound of the waves. It had a sense of serenity amidst the noise. Walking into the wooden house, Jidong could not help but be shocked by the simplicity of Yin Xiaoyang's life. This wooden house did not even have a table, chair, or even a bed, let alone decorations. Yin Xiaoyang just sat cross-legged in the center, as if the purpose of this wooden house was only to shelter him from the wind and rain. Yin Xiaoyang closed his eyes and pointed in front of him, motioning for the two to sit down. Yin Zhaorong let Jidong sit directly opposite Yin Xiaoyang, while she sat on the side. There was a hint of a smile in her eyes. The more she looked at Jidong, the more she liked him. In the Central Plain city, Jidong's cold refusal to recognize Ji Yunsheng as his relative had won Yin Zhaorong's heart. This kind of strong, domineering, and arrogant character was what she liked the most. In this aspect, Jidong was even stronger than Fury. Fury was more domineering, but he lacked Jidong's internal pride. Yin Xiaoyang said lightly, Jidong, I heard from Zhurong that he has not taught you anything yet. From today onwards, you will follow me and Zhao Rong to cultivate. Are you willing? Disciple is willing. Facing this supreme-level expert in front of him, who could intimidate the entire Central Plains Empire, Jidong did not cower at all. He straightened his back and answered in a clear voice. Yin Xiaoyang said, Jidong, I know that you must have had a fortuitous encounter in your cultivation, but I will not ask what this fortuitous encounter is. Although your temperament is a bit extreme, you have a sense of righteousness in your bones. As long as your righteousness lasts and you stay true to your heart, nothing else is important. When you left the Central Plains city, your magic power was only at level 31. In just a few months, it has already reached level 38. When a demon master cultivates, after breaking through level 30, the speed at which their magic power increases will obviously slow down. I need to know how you increased your magic power by 7 levels in such a short period of time. I hope this is not because you use some secret method to burn your future potential to increase your magic power. Jidong said frankly, every bit of power Disciple has obtained is obtained through my own bitter cultivation. After leaving the Central Plains city this time, Disciple indeed had another fortuitous encounter, so there is no need to hide it. Grandmaster, have you heard of the title of Heavenly Stem Saint? Heavenly Stem Saint? Even with Yin Xiaoyang's quiet mind that had been sitting for 10 years, he couldn't help but tremble slightly when he heard these words. Yin Xiaorong next to him also widened his eyes and grabbed Ji Dong's shoulder, saying, "Little Dong Dong, does Heavenly Stem Saint really exist?" Ji Dong said, "It should exist. The fortuitous encounter I obtained this time is related to Heavenly Stem Saint. Grandmaster, Master's wife, the symbol of Heavenly Stem Saint's identity is the extreme magic power of non-supreme level experts. The person I asked Senior Brother Fury to find has the extreme first with demonic power, and this time I was with him to explore treasure." As he spoke, a golden light flashed in Ji Dong's eyes. His magic power changed, and the sun crown appeared. At the same time, the sun-fire condensing array appeared. Chapter 123. The first thing that appeared was the golden-red vermilion bird's shadow. When the magic patterns emitted from the vermilion bird's shadow, and the golden-red circular halo enveloped them, Yin Xiaoyang didn't feel anything. But Yin Xiaoyang suddenly opened his eyes, and two rays of light like cold lightning burst out. Ji Dong only felt that the moment Yin Xiaoyang opened his eyes, the wooden house clearly lit up. It didn't look like a pair of eyes, but more like two bright stars, condensing on a yang fire condensation formation behind Ji Dong. Even Yin Xiaoyang's breathing became a little faster. He was a little unsure and said in surprise. Ji Dong nodded affirmatively and said, "Grandmaster, this is the third fire condensation formation of the 5 elements formation, one of the 9 major formations of the third fire element." The words Heavenly Stem Saint had already shocked Yin Xiaoyang and Yang Xiaoyang. At this time, hearing the words 5 elements formation, these two supreme experts couldn't help but look at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The bright light in Yin Xiaoyang's eyes gradually dimmed. After a long while, he spat out 4 words from his mouth, "Blessed by heaven." Yin Xiaoyang nodded and said in deep thought, "Indeed blessed by heaven. Heaven treats my fire element well. No wonder your magic power increased so quickly. The 5 elements formation has long been lost. Even we only saw a simple introduction in some ancient books. I didn't expect it to really exist." Yin Xiaoyang said, "Ji Dong, can you tell me, where did you learn this 5 elements formation?" Ji Dong didn't hide anything. Immediately, he told them about his journey with Yao Qianshu to the New Oding Forest, the Misty Swamp, and the search for the Heavenly Stem Saint's underground palace in detail. He didn't even neglect the fact that he had ignited the flame of chaos. Towards the 2 supreme being experts in front of him, he had an extremely cordial and favorable impression. Compared to Tianji and Yao Qianshu, he was much closer to the Yin-Yang siblings. Listening to Ji Dong's narration, Yin Xiaoyang's eyes never closed again. He listened to every word intently, and only after he had finished speaking did Yin Xiaoyang slowly nod his head and say, "The 5 elements formation, an ancient inheritance. So the existence of the divine design is actually because of the Heavenly Stem Saints. Every generation of the divine design is known as the only prophet on the continent and has an extraordinary status. Their special abilities are actually inherited from the ancient inheritance. It seems that the divine design is right. Ji Dong, you are very likely to be the leader of the Heavenly Stem Saints of this generation, the Saint King." Ji Dong said, "Grandmaster, madam, I can draw out the 9 great formations of the third fire series and the Fuhua series. Perhaps it will be of some help to you." Yin Xiaoyang waved his hand and said, "No need. The 5 elements formation is useless to us." Yin Xiaoyang waved his hand and said, "No need. This 5 elements formation has no use for us. No wonder it was lost. Although I can feel the endless mysteries of a yang fire formation that you released, I can't simulate it. Presumably, only people born with extreme demonic power can practice it. In other words, only the Heavenly Stem Saints can learn the mysteries of the 5 elements formation. The Heavenly Stem Saints only appear once every few hundred years and have been passed down to this day. It's normal for the 5 elements formation to be lost. Since you've learned it, you should comprehend it as soon as possible. The first wood saint that you mentioned was right. If you can comprehend it all, then your strength will directly break through the sixth crown realm. Yin Xiaorong said, just a small matter. Don't tell anyone about this five elements formation in the future, including your master. This matter is of great importance. Such a precious treasure will inevitably attract people to steal it. Once it spreads out, it will definitely bring you endless trouble. Yes, madam, Yin Xiaoyang said. You can stay here with me. What Zhurong didn't teach you, I will teach you. Demonic power is the foundation of a demon master. But how to use demonic power and how to use demonic skills to fully display one's strength is equally important. Since you have the cultivation method of the five elements formation, Zhao Rong and I will not guide you in the cultivation of demonic power. We will teach you our respective demonic skills. You are a diligent child. The strength you possess today is undoubtedly due to your unique luck, but at the same time, it is inseparable from your own efforts. No matter when, I hope that you will not give up on this diligence. Jidong nodded and said, Grandmaster, I will work hard. Of course, he would not give up on his diligence. When a person had a goal, he would be full of motivation to work hard for this goal. And the only goal in Jidong's heart was to have the strength to protect the flaming bar. In order to achieve this goal, no matter how hard or tiring it was, he would definitely persevere. He did not know how long the flaming bar would take to adjust. Jidong only hoped that when she finished her closed-door training, she would be pleasantly surprised to see his improvement in strength. Even if it was just a smile from her, all his efforts would be worth it. Yin Xiaoyang arranged for Jidong to stay in the wooden house on his left, while Yin Xiaoyang stayed on the other side. Just like Yin Xiaoyang's own room, there were no decorations in the wooden house. Sitting in the wooden house, one could only vaguely hear the sound of the rolling waves outside. Sitting cross-legged in the middle of the wooden house, Jidong immediately felt a kind of tranquil atmosphere. Even though the sound of the waves constantly came from outside, he felt very calm and comfortable here. Every time he felt this tranquil, the first thing that appeared in his mind was that stunning beauty. Flaming Bar, are you doing well now? I don't know when I will be able to see you again. Right now, I'm following Grandmaster and Mistress to cultivate. I'm afraid that even if you finish your closed-door training, I still won't be able to find you. Grandmaster and Mistress have such great strength, they will definitely find out. But you also said that I can't let anyone know that I can teleport to the core world to find you. Just as he was thinking about her deeply, Jidong's heart gradually calmed down. He closed his eyes and slowly released the mana in his body. A black and white yin-yang crown appeared on top of his head. The 3 crowns and 4 stars emitted a faint radiance, and the fire element in the air clearly became more intense. Jidong raised both of his hands and drew a circle in the air. Dense mana ripples immediately condensed together. Immediately after, a strange aura was released from his body. The black and white yin-yang crown on top of his head immediately turned black and gold. Intense, ultimate fire instantly surged out of his body. The left side of his body was completely enveloped by black flames, while the right side of his body was a brilliant golden-red color. The dual-colored flames rose at the same time, filled with a strange aura. The circles that his hands had drawn immediately turned into 2 light rings that floated up and condensed on the left and right sides of his back. Indistinctly, Jidong's body seemed to have grown a little taller. The ultimate dual fire that was released from his body set off the strong and proud aura that he emitted. The shadows of the 2 sovereigns alternated as the vermilion bird and the flying serpent appeared in the 2 halos that condensed behind his back. Accompanying their appearance were demonic patterns that were filled with a strange aura. That's right. What Jidong was doing now was releasing the Yang fire formation and the Yin fire formation out of his body at the same time. He was a dual Yin and Yang elemental being. Even though the Yin-Yang vortex and the divine Yin-Yang lock could help him switch between the 2 elemental flames at any time, he could only improve faster when he was cultivating by absorbing both flames in a balanced state at the same time. When Jidong was in the underground palace, the first thing he comprehended was the soaring Yang fire formation. After that, he went to the 4th Fire Holy Temple to comprehend the Yin fire formation. After that, he comprehended the Yang fire formation. It was thanks to these two great formations that he was able to make consecutive breakthroughs in his demonic power in a short period of time. Once the two great formations appeared, the situation in the wooden hut immediately changed. Originally, there was only Ji Dong's position in the room. The dual-colored flames rose and illuminated the surroundings. However, at this moment, the entire wooden hut was filled with the aura of the ultimate dual fire. It was as if the room had been divided into two. One side was an intense gold, while the other side was a deep black. It was a spectacular sight. The dual fire elements in the air surged into the wooden hut frantically under the effect of the two great formations. Once they entered the range of Ji Dong's ultimate dual fire, they were immediately condensed, compressed, and filtered. Only after going through these three processes would the purest flames fuse into Ji Dong's body. When Ji Dong first started cultivating dual attribute mana, his cultivation speed was much slower than that of ordinary wizards. If it wasn't for the rich dual fire elements in the core world for him to absorb, he wouldn't have been able to break through to the first crown realm and become an yin and yang magician in just 4 years. However, Ji Dong's situation had undergone a complete change. With the help of the dual fire elemental 5 elements formation and his own chaotic fire, his cultivation speed was almost 4 times that of an ordinary demon master. The amount of mana he absorbed was even more terrifying, reaching more than 8 times that of an ordinary demon master. If it wasn't for the fact that half of the demonic power Ji Dong absorbed would be devoured by the trace of chaotic fire at the core of the yin-yang vortex, his rate of increase in demonic power would be even more terrifying. After completing the setup of the two great formations, Ji Dong didn't need to absorb it with his mind at all. His demonic power could already increase on its own. He entered a meditative state to comprehend the third fire and fourth fire 5 elements formation that were deeply imprinted in his mind. Yin Zhaoyang and Yin Zhaorong didn't cultivate. When Ji Dong returned to his room, they were silently sensing Ji Dong's current state of cultivation. Originally, they planned to use their powerful demonic power to help Ji Dong make the surrounding fire elements richer. However, when Ji Dong displayed the two great formations, the two supremes immediately realized that their worries were completely unnecessary. A day and a night passed quickly. The knocking on the door woke Ji Dong up from his cultivation state. For him, it seemed that only a short moment had passed. When comprehending the 5 elements formation, time always passed very quickly. After putting away the 5 elements formation, Ji Dong got up and opened the door. Yin Zhaorong was standing outside the door. As usual, even if she lived in this wooden house by the sea, his master's wife still paid great attention to dressing herself. Her blue palace dress was impeccable, and she was looking at him with a smile. "Little Dong Dong, you should eat something." Ji Dong scratched his head and said, "Has it been a long time? The sky is still bright." Yin Zhaorong laughed and said, "If every demon master in our light 5 elements continent could cultivate like you, I'm afraid that the dark 5 elements continent would have long been annexed by us. Now is the 2nd day since you came here. Come out and eat something. Then, master's wife has something to teach you." When Ji Dong walked out of the room, there was a wooden table in the courtyard. There were 2 small baskets made of rattan and 2 bowls with some fruits in each basket. Among the 2 big bowls, one bowl was thick fish soup, and bursts of fresh smell assailed the nostrils. The other bowl was a white paste. He didn't know what it was, but it had a faint fishy smell. "Master's wife, have you eaten?" asked Ji Dong. Yin Zhaorong smiled and said, "You are such a good child. You even know to ask master's wife first. After your master and I reach the 9 crowns realm, we only need to absorb the chi of heaven and earth. Eating foreign things will cause impurities in our bodies, so we can't eat casually. The reason why demon masters with exclusive titles can live 1 or 200 years longer than ordinary people is because we use the chi of heaven and earth as nutrients to nourish our bodies and delay aging. Although I can't restore my youth like Big Brother, I can't eat ordinary food. These fruits and ingredients were found by Lon Lon. You have to thank him later. I made this fish soup. I haven't cooked for many years, so I don't know how it tastes. Have a taste. Looking at the fish soup in the bowl, Jidong's heart that was originally very calm because of cultivation suddenly became hot. Although it was just a bowl of simple fish soup, he felt a strong sense of kinship in it. His arrogant eyes couldn't help but soften. He picked up the fish soup and took a sip. Frankly speaking, the fish soup that Yin Xiaorong made was not delicious. Although the fish was the freshest sea fish, this supreme expert's cooking skills were not good. Not only was it salty, but it was also a little bitter. Obviously, there was too much salt, but Jidong drank it with relish. He swallowed it in big mouthfuls, and there was no unnaturalness on his face. It was as if he couldn't wait to eat the delicacy. For a chef, even if it was a temporary chef, what he hoped the most was that others could like the food he made. Even a supreme expert like Yin Xiaorong was no exception. Seeing that the big bowl of fish soup was eaten by Jidong, the smile on his face suddenly became wider. Eat slowly, eat slowly. If you like it, I will make more for you in the future. You are really pitiful. You have been an orphan since you were young. In the future, you won't be. With me here, I will be your family. If anyone dares to bully you, I will use the fourth fire to burn his soul into ashes. Jidong nodded hard and drank the last mouthful of fish soup. He looked at Yin Xiaorong and said, "Master's wife, Something seemed to be stuck in his throat, and he didn't finish his sentence. Chapter 124. Looking at Jidong's slightly red eyes, Yin Xiaorong chuckled and said, "Hurry up and eat. Don't talk while eating. This white thing seems to be fish brain. I don't know what fish Lon Lon killed to get it, but he said you must drink it. He said it will be good for your body, but I don't think it will taste too good." Jidong picked up the bowl without hesitation and gulped down the white, creamy fish brain. Speaking of which, this thing wasn't too unpalatable. It was just tasteless. The fish soup just happened to be salty, so eating this bowl of fish brain actually made the taste in his mouth a little better. As soon as the fish brain entered his stomach, Jidong immediately felt waves of hot air spread throughout his limbs and bones. It was indescribably comfortable. He had been sitting cross-legged for a day and a night, and his somewhat stiff muscles and bones were being nourished by this hot air. It was as if every meridian in his body had been stretched out. "Are you done eating, little Dong?" With a flash of blue light, Soaring Serpent's head had already poked in from outside the yard. "Senior Soaring Serpent, thank you," Jidong said sincerely. Soaring Serpent chuckled and said, "There's no other way. I can't let Xiaorong and your ancestor find food, so I have to do it. It's okay. When Zhu Yin and Fury come, I don't have to do this anymore. Although Zhu Yin is a little weird at times, the food he makes is much better than Xiaorong's. It must have been hard on you to be able to drink Xiaorong's fish soup. This is a great feat that even your master could not accomplish." Yin Xiaorong said angrily, "Lon Lon, are you itching for a beating? Do you want me to help you loosen it?" Soaring Serpent chuckled and said, "Xiaorong, it's useless to act tough on the inside. Your food really doesn't taste good. You can't stop me from telling the truth, right? I'm a Soaring Serpent with a sense of justice. How can I lie? Little Dong, come. I'll teach you some basic skills today." Looking at the wretched glint in Soaring Serpent's eyes, Yin Xiaorong couldn't help but laugh and said, "Lon Lon, you better not torture my disciple, or else I won't play with you." Mengshi looked at Jidong. The light in his eyes clearly harbored some malicious intent. How can it be torture? This is called training. Others want to torture them, but I'm not willing. Little Dong Dong, come quickly, I have high hopes for you. Yin Xiaorong patted Jidong's shoulder and said, "Go with him. Lanlin's character is like this. He likes to laugh and make trouble, but he is very gentle. When I was young, he also taught me that although it will be painful, it is very good for you." Jidong agreed and strode out of the courtyard to the beach outside. Mengshi's body that was stuck to the ground twisted slightly and was already dozens of meters away. Jidong hurriedly ran behind him. Mengshi stopped when they reached the beach, turned around, and lifted the front half of his body, which was just as tall as Jidong. A pair of deep blue eyes looked at Jidong and said, "Little Dong Dong, you have to be mentally prepared. Today, rather than saying that I'm teaching you, it's more like I'm forcing you to do something. Do you know what is the most important thing for a powerful magician? Ji Dong said, naturally, it's magic. Meng Shi shook his head forcefully and said, no, that's not right. Ji Dong was stunned for a moment and said, could it be magic skills? Meng Shi shook his head again and said, still not right. Ji Dong asked doubtfully, then what is it? Isn't the most important thing for a magician magic skills and magic skills? Meng Shi laughed and said, it's the ability to withstand blows. Withstand blows? Ji Dong looked at Meng Shi quizzically, not quite understanding what he meant. Meng Shi said very seriously, that's right, the ability to withstand blows is the most important thing. Think about it. If you face an opponent who is stronger than you, and when he attacks you, you also attack him at the same time. In the end, your ability to withstand blows far surpasses his. Although your strength is not as great as his attacks will not be able to cause you any harm, while your attacks will cause him so much pain that he will wish he was dead. If this continues, would he still have a chance of winning? Even if he tries his best not to fight with you and injure each other, he will still have some reservations. Being able to bring out 50 or 60% of his full strength is already a pretty good result. When you meet an opponent that you cannot possibly defend against, the ability to withstand blows becomes even more important because it will become your magical weapon to escape. Therefore, to a magician, the body is the foundation, and a strong ability to withstand blows will give you a unique advantage. Although Meng Shi's eyes were a little wretched, but listening to his words, Ji Dong still nodded his head repeatedly. From his own point of view, having the vermilion bird in her armor and being immersed in dragon's blood, these two great advantages indeed allowed him to fight against opponents who were stronger than him in battle. The strength of his body allowed him to focus more on attacking. Meng Shi saw Ji Dong nodding his head seriously, and once again chuckled and said, since you agree with me, then from now on, for a period of time, I will help you improve the quality of your body and greatly increase your ability to withstand blows. Little Dong, let me ask you, what is the most important thing in terms of a person's ability to withstand blows? Ji Dong shook his head and said, I humbly request Senior Meng Shi to teach me. Meng Shi said, the most important thing is how to neutralize the opponent's attack and minimize the damage that the opponent's attack brings to you. Come, give me a punch. All right. Ji Dong agreed without hesitation. Facing the divine beast Dinghua, he had nothing to fear. If he could injure Meng Shi, how could Meng Shi have survived from ancient times until now? Taking a step forward, Ji Dong's entire body's essence, qi and spirit were raised to the peak in an instant, and he punched out with his well-trained Devour Sunday. The third Wu primordial yang, sacred fire, exploded from his fist like a bomb, the scorching aura filled with madness and pride. From stillness to attack, the entire process was as fast as lightning. To be able to adjust his aura, strength, and demonic energy to such an extent in an instant, it could be seen just how much effort Ji Dong had put into this Devour Sunday. Little Dong, come at me for real. Meng Shi laughed mockingly, but did not dodge. Seeing the blinding golden flames about to smash into his body, he did not release his own ultimate in flames to resist. In Ji Dong's eyes, although the disparity between him and Meng Shi was like heaven and earth, his third Wu primordial yang sacred fire was after all an ultimate yang flame. Even Meng Shi would have to use demonic energy to resist it. But in reality, the situation was completely different from what he had imagined. Seeing that the Devour Sun was about to descend upon Meng Shi's body suddenly twisted slightly. In that instant, Ji Dong felt as if the entire space around him had changed. His will had clearly locked onto Meng Shi's body, but at this moment, he felt as if he had locked onto nothing, an indescribable discomfort. This punch still landed on the soaring serpent's body, and when Ji Dong's fist came into contact with the deep blue scales on the surface of the soaring serpent's body, he could clearly feel a slippery sensation, accompanied by fluctuating fluctuations. His highly condensed Xingwu primordial yang saint flame had unexpectedly dispersed, and although its light had become more intense, it had in fact only a small effect on the soaring serpent's body. Meng Shi also let out a soft cry of surprise. His body trembled once more, and an inexplicable surge of potential spread out. Only then was he able to shake off the suction force of the Devourer's Son. Your attack skill is not bad, Mengshi praised. It must be known that he was one of the heavenly stem divine beasts, a true divine beast powerhouse, an existence equal to a 9-crowned demon master. To be able to receive such praise from him, one could see how powerful the Devourer's Son was. This was the first time that Ji Dong had encountered a situation where his full-strength ultimate Yang Flame had struck an opponent, but the opponent seemed to be unharmed. Towards Mengxi's previous words, he could not help but believe them even more. Mengxi said, "Interesting, very interesting. This skill of yours is different from ordinary Yang Flame skills. It actually does not explode outwards, but explodes inwards. It has a very strong suction force, and the opponent will not be repelled by the explosive force of the Yang Flame. Instead, it will be delayed by your attack. If I'm not wrong, there should be a follow-up move. This is a very powerful close combat demonic skill." Ji Dong said honestly, "There are 2 more overlapping attacks, and I can also combine them with Fourth Fire to produce the effect of a dual attribute combination skill." Mengxi chuckled and said, "Now is not the time to study demonic skills. How did you feel when you attacked me just now?" Ji Dong said, "There was a feeling of not being able to exert any strength, as if I had hit empty air. Most of the demonic power had been dissipated, and my ultimate Yang Flame attribute was definitely unable to harm you." Tengshi said, "That's right. This is the ability to resist attacks that I was talking about. Not only must you be able to resist the enemy's attack, you must also be able to dissipate the enemy's attack as much as possible. If I had taken the opportunity to counterattack just now, 100 of you would already be dead. A strong defensive ability is not only able to prevent the enemy from harming you, it can also create opportunities to counterattack and disrupt the opponent's attack rhythm." Ji Dong nodded his head in deep thought. Previously, when Mengxi had dissipated his attack, he had clearly felt as if he could not withstand the Flaming Sun's 3 consecutive strikes. Mengxi said, "I am giving you this demonstration so that you will have more confidence in accepting my training. When you're able to reach my level, then even if you have mastered your defense, in terms of attack power, I cannot compare to the Vermilion Bird, but in terms of defense, the Vermilion Bird is far inferior to me. To have a defense like mine, the first thing is to have a flexibility that far surpasses that of a normal person. Flexibility is always better than rigidity, and only with enough flexibility will you be able to sustain your defense when facing an enemy. At your age, your bones and muscles are still considered soft. Today, I will help you train up your flexibility. However, you must be mentally prepared, as there will be a little bit of pain." Ji Dong nodded his head and said, "Senior Mengxi, I can endure it. Please do it." Mengxi's theory had opened a new door to cultivation for him. Although Mengxi had not said much, but it had already proven its effects in theory and practice. The soaring serpent's 10-meter-long body twisted slightly, and a strange scene appeared. His body that was originally as thick as a water tank suddenly shrunk rapidly. Although his length did not change, but in the span of a few breaths, he was only as thick as an arm. A blue light flashed, and before Ji Dong could clearly see how it had moved, the Mengxi had already arrived in front of him. The deep blue light flashed several times, and Ji Dong felt as if his limbs and waist were no longer able to move. The Mengxi's body had wrapped itself around his upper arm, lower arm, thigh, calf, waist, and neck. "Endure it a little. I'm about to start." Mengxi's voice sounded somewhat malicious, and in the next moment, Ji Dong finally understood what this heavenly stem divine beast meant by a little bit of pain. Kacha, kacha, kacha. A massive force came from all 4 of his limbs, and Ji Dong immediately fell to the ground. His limbs were lifted up behind him, and under the influence of the Mengxi's tough body, his limbs formed a reverse bow shape. Ji Dong felt as if all the bones in his body were about to shatter at any moment, and the immense pain rushed into his mind like a tidal wave. Even his strong and sturdy body began to twist under the immense force, and the bones in his thighs, shoulders, and waist seemed to be pulled to the limit, on the verge of shattering. "Not bad. Looks like I've still underestimated you. Your body is much stronger than a normal person, Tengshi said with a tinge of longing. Immediately after, a faint layer of light shone from the Mengshi's body, and Jidong's body changed once more. His limbs and head were stretched outwards, forming a shape. This time, it was different from the feeling of being broken, and the pain this time was even more intense. His limbs and neck felt as if they were about to be forcefully torn apart, and the intense pain caused Jidong's body to be soaked in sweat. But even so, he still gritted his teeth and did not make a single sound. One could clearly see the muscles on both his cheeks bulging, a sign that he was gritting his teeth to a certain degree. Both his fists were clenched so tightly that the sounds of his bones cracking could be heard. The most intense pain had not yet arrived, but the Mengshi clearly had no intention of stopping. His body that was wrapped around Jidong suddenly shuddered violently, and Jidong could only feel a wave of chilling heat flowing through his limbs and bones into his body. Immediately after, under the immense force, all his bone marrow gave off a teeth-aching cracking sound, and in the midst of the cracking sounds, his bones actually began to break apart, and his body was strangely stretched to half its normal length. Just think about it. What kind of pain would it be when a person's bone marrow was completely torn apart? Jidong's eyes instantly turned red, and he could no longer clench his fists tightly. His entire body became limp, and his bones could no longer support his muscles, and were completely pulled apart. At that moment, he no longer looked like a human, and his fingernails instantly pierced into his palms. Following that, everything that the Mengshi did made Jidong fully understand what it meant to be a fate worse than death. Under the influence of the Mengshi's 10-meter-long body, his body was constantly being pulled into various shapes, and waves of chilling heat flowed into his body. Chapter 125. Jidong's vermilion bird inner armor automatically protected him, covering the surface of his skin. But this had no effect on the dry flying serpent. The pain did not lessen, but instead became more intense. Layer after layer of milky white light rippled out from Jidong's body. The mana within his body was completely suppressed by the cold heat, unable to provide any protection at all, not even able to reduce his pain. Large droplets of sweat soaked the sand beneath Jidong's body. His entire body was no longer recognizable as human. Fresh blood flowed continuously from the corners of his mouth. It was not because he had vomited blood due to his injuries, but because he had clenched his teeth so hard that blood had flowed out from the roots of his teeth. However, this situation did not last for long, because his lower jaw had also been dislocated by Tengshi's trembling. Jidong's consciousness gradually blurred. No matter how strong his willpower was, his body could no longer withstand such torture and began to show signs of self-preservation. A faint blue mist continued to seep out from the dry, flying serpent's body, passing through Jidong's orifices and entering his body as Jidong breathed. Although the defense of the vermilion bird inner armor was good, it could not stop the automatic inhalation of the blue mist. Every time the blue mist seeped out, the light in the dry, flying serpent's eyes would dim. But his torment towards Jidong did not slow down at all. Seeing that Jidong was on the verge of fainting, the dry, flying serpent obviously had no intention of letting him go. An icy, cold thought flowed into Jidong's mind, causing his fainting consciousness to awaken once more, and his sense of pain increased by several notches. The dry flying serpent fully demonstrated to Hyoheim what cruelty was. Jidong watched as his body was twisted and twisted like a fried dough twist. His tendons, muscles, bones, all were constantly being pulled, and he kept repeating the process of fainting and being awakened by Tengshi. This happened 9 times. Just as Jidong was about to completely collapse, Mengshi seemed to have grasped this moment perfectly. Finally, he did not use his will to wake Jidong and allowed him to fall unconscious. Jidong's deep blue body began to move again, and with a series of bone-grinding sounds that made one's teeth ache, the bones in his body began to reconnect. In just a few breaths of time, his body had already returned to normal. On the surface of his skin, The vermilion bird armor was faintly discernible, and even his chest was no longer moving up and down, as if he had died. Lan Lan, you're too cruel. With a flash of light, Yin Xiaorong had already appeared beside Meng Shi. Looking at Ji Dong's appearance, his eyes were full of regret. Meng Shi said exasperatedly, "It's fine if you don't praise me, but you actually say that I'm ruthless? I've used up a lot of magic power, I'm exhausted." Yin Xiaorong said angrily, "Look at how you've tortured little Dong Dong to this state. When you helped me improve my body, it was only an hour. Now it's been 4 hours, and you still haven't made him faint. If anything happens to little Dong Dong, I will not forgive you." Meng Shi was a little strange, but did not complain anymore. A pair of deep snake eyes stared at Ji Dong, sighed, and said, "Xiaorong, no matter what, you are still one of the supreme masters of the human race. Do you still need me to explain? Back then, I only modified you for an hour because you could only withstand it for an hour. Ji Dong's modification lasted for a full 4 hours because his endurance far exceeds your original situation." Yin Xiaorong was taken aback and said, "That's impossible. When you modified my body, I already had the cultivation of 6 crowns. Even if I'm slightly older than little Dong Dong now, but I have already infused the elements into my body, fusing them with my bones and meridians. My degree of toughness far exceeds that of an ordinary person. No matter what, little Dong Dong is still not at 4 crowns. This endurance," Meng Shi snorted and said, "Do you think my feelings are wrong? At the beginning, I was only prepared to carry out some simple modifications on him. But who knew that this little fellow did not even make a sound and forcefully endured my modifications? At that time, I felt that if I didn't make him scream once or twice, I would lose face. So I continued to increase my strength. This test was not important, but I discovered that his body's strength far exceeded my imagination. Not only does he have the aura of a vermilion bird, there's even a trace of the aura of a dragon. His muscles, skin, and bones are all extremely tough. Most importantly, this little fellow's willpower can be said to be terrifying. It's a kind of pride that comes from the inside out. From the beginning to the end, even when he was about to faint from the pain, he did not make a sound. This willpower, even I have to say that I admire it. Unlike you, when I first started, your screams could be heard from 100 miles away. Bullsh asterisk T. My willpower is also very strong, okay?" Yin Xiaorong looked at the unconscious Ji Dong in amazement and said unhappily. Meng Shi laughed and said, Yes, your willpower is also very strong." Speaking up to this point, his voice suddenly changed and became as sharp as a woman's voice. "Help. No, I can't take it anymore. I really can't take it anymore. Meng Shi, you stinking hooligan, if you don't let me go, I'm going to scream for molestation. I'm going to die. I can't take it anymore." Hearing Meng Shi's voice, Yin Xiaorong's face turned red and white and said, "Wow, you actually dare to imitate me. Stinking Lan Lan, you're dead." Meng Shi laughed, turned around, and ran. His body shrank and bounced on the beach and disappeared without a trace. Yin Xiaorong chuckled. She did not really have the intention to chase after him, and muttered to herself, "Did I scream so miserably at that time? I only vaguely remember that it was so painful that I couldn't help but scream. Little Dong Dong, you made Master's wife lose face again." When Ji Dong woke up from his coma, he found himself lying in the wooden hut again. When he opened his eyes, he only felt that there was not a trace of strength in his body. The feeling of soreness spread throughout his body, and there was a faint heat flowing through the joints of his bones. Although the soreness was also uncomfortable, it was much better than the pain from before. Breathing lightly, Ji Dong could feel that his body seemed to have returned to normal. Even his mind felt that everything that happened before was like a nightmare. It was really a little painful. Ji Dong had a feeling of being angry and amused at the same time. Of course, he was not angry because Meng Shi tortured him. He could feel that what Meng Shi did should have helped his body to a certain extent. As for what it was specifically, he was not clear. At this time, his body only felt soreness, and naturally he could not feel any changes. Fortunately, the feeling of the yin-yang vortex being suppressed had disappeared, and the magic flowed naturally in his body. His body could not move, but there was no problem in activating the magic. His mind was integrated into the magic, and the yin-yang vortex began to spin faster. The dual attributes of extreme magic flowed through his limbs and bones, nourishing every part of his body. When Ji Dong released his magic, he was suddenly shocked because he was surprised to find that among the magic that he used to nourish his body, the extreme yang fire was nothing. But as soon as the extreme yin fire flowed through his body, it was immediately absorbed by his body, as if it had directly become a part of his body. The consumption rate was even faster than using magic skills. What's going on? Ji Dong was somewhat confused, but when his body absorbed the extreme fourth fire in the yin-yang vortex, a comfortable feeling that made him almost moan rushed into his brain. Almost subconsciously, the yin-yang vortex changed, and the magic in his body was replaced by the extreme yin fire, which slowly fused with his body, nourishing his sore bones and muscles. After an unknown period of time, when the magic in Ji Dong's body was completely exhausted, he felt that his body was much more comfortable, and he had regained his strength. He sat cross-legged, and with a flash of inspiration, he called out to Eclipse Phoenix Hua-Er. With a flash of light, Hua-Er's golden-red figure appeared above Ji Dong's body. The moment it appeared, it even looked around, as if it was afraid of encountering Meng Shi. Hua-Er, condense the yin fire into a formation and help me. Ji Dong's own magic was already insufficient, so he could only ask for help from his good companion. Hua-Er did not discover any traces of Meng. She immediately became lively. She spread her wings and circled around the room, and a strange scene appeared. The golden-red feathers on her body began to change, and in the blink of an eye, they had become as black as ink. Black flames surrounded her body, and a deep, gloomy, and cold aura was released. She had already transformed into a black phoenix. Retracting her wings, Hua-Er stopped behind Ji Dong. A black halo of light surrounded her body, and the yin fire was condensed into a formation. Suddenly, the entire wooden hut became completely dark, and the figures of Ji Dong and Eclipse Phoenix Hua-Er could no longer be seen. Outside the wooden hut, it was unknown when the Meng Shi had returned. Yin Xiaorong stood not far from Ji Dong's door and whispered, "Lan Lan, how long will little Dong Dong need to cultivate?" The Meng Shi said, "There's no need to rush. Wait until he feels that his body has completely recovered. To be honest, this yin fire condensing formation makes me drool. You and Yin Xiaoyang can't learn it, but I can. I'm just a little embarrassed to ask." Yin Xiaorong snorted and said, "I was wondering why you became so generous this time. When you helped little Dong Dong improve his body, you even integrated your cold blood atomization into his bones and muscles. It turns out that you have a favor to ask of him, but you can be considered smart. Little Dong Dong is a classic example of someone who is amenable to coaxing but not coercion. However, the preciousness of the 5 elements formation is not something that your snake blood can compare to." The Meng Shi let out a strange cry. "Xiaorong, you can't do this. You're extorting me. Look, I'm so pitiful. Aren't you embarrassed?" Yin Xiaorong looked up at the sky and said, "Pitiful? Why didn't I see it? Previously, it seemed that some snake was mimicking the way I screamed in the past. My strength has already reached the peak of the Fuhua series. Even if I learn the 5 elements formation, at most there will only be some changes in the application of magic power. We'll talk about this later. Actually, I did not hesitate to use my Yuan Qi to help him because of himself. That fellow Vermilion Bird has really put in a lot of effort." The Vermilion Bird's Vermilion Bird inner armor on little Dong Dong's body was forged using at least 3 types of heavenly treasures, in addition to the Vermilion Bird's own Yuan Qi. Furthermore, with the help of the solar eclipse fire, it achieved a balance of yin and yang, thus propelling little Dong Dong's body to produce the embryonic form of chaos. However, the Vermilion Bird is after all a fire divine beast. She still does not have enough understanding of the solar eclipse fire. The greatest characteristic of the solar eclipse fire is its indestructibility, almost eternal. That is why her child has not hatched in 3,000 years. Ji Dong absorbed all the solar eclipse fire into his body. Although the vermilion bird's inner armor helped him assimilate it completely, but there was still a trace of the solar eclipse firebrand left in his body. As time passed, it merged into his Ding Si dark spirit fire. I can't lose to the vermilion bird. After thinking about it, only this pitiful snake blood can compare to the materials used by the vermilion bird. In addition to the improvements to his body, the vermilion bird used the phoenix feather as a needle, while I used the snake blood as a guide. She modified his skin, while I modified his bones and muscles. The vermilion bird gave him the inner armor for defense and flight, while I gave him the power to dissolve and toughen his body. Yin Xiaorong looked at Meng Shi speechlessly. He gently rubbed Meng Shi's head and said, "Lan Lan, you're still so competitive. For Xiao Dong Dong, you've hurt your vitality this time. Don't you know that my heart aches? I was just joking with you just now. Xiao Dong Dong isn't someone who treasures himself. Later, I'll ask him to teach you the fourth fire, 9 major formations. With the help of the 9 major formations, you should be able to recover quickly." Meng Shi snorted and said, "Xiaorong, you've underestimated me. Even without the 9 major formations, I can still recover quickly. Have you forgotten what kind of place this is? To a normal person, or even a powerful devil master, the sea in front of us is a land of great danger. But to me, this is a land of great nourishment. Who knows how many good things there are to eat? Otherwise, I wouldn't have helped Xiao Dong Dong at all costs. Actually, I have my own selfish motives. You and Yin Xiaoyang didn't realize that Xiao Dong Dong doesn't just possess the embryonic chaos origin. His flame of chaos has already awakened." "What?" Yin Xiaorong was shocked. He stared at Meng Shi and was speechless. Meng Shi habitually chuckled and said, "This little guy will definitely have great achievements in the future. Instead of adding flowers to brocade in the future, it's better to help him in his hour of need now. It's not bad to get acquainted with our future Saint King." Yin Xiaorong was still immersed in this shocking news. He said, "Flame of chaos, flame of chaos." Meng Shi said, "The flame of chaos is the real driving force behind the vermilion bird inner armor's yin and yang fusion. This time, I've completely transformed Xiao Dong Dong, giving him the body of a Meng Shi. It's also relying on the flame of chaos. Any external energy of the same attribute, upon sensing the aura of the flame of chaos, will only end up being devoured and fused." Chapter 126. Just as Yin Xiaorong was shocked by Soaring Serpent's words, the door of the central wooden house opened, and Yin Xiaoyang slowly walked out from inside, saying, "Soaring Serpent is right. Jidong's flame of chaos has already awakened. When I first saw him, I already felt the burning aura of his flame of chaos. The reason why I was willing to give in to Ji Zhangxin is precisely because of this. Ji Zhangxin, after all, is of the earth attribute. In a short period of time, he still cannot discover the flame of chaos on Jidong's body, but after a long period of time, it is hard to say. Therefore, I immediately took Jidong away from Central Plain City." Yin Xiaorong said with some dissatisfaction, "Brother, since you already know, why didn't you tell me?" Yin Xiaoyang said lightly, "Don't you already know now? Soaring Serpent, this is for you. Consider it as a return gift from me on behalf of Jidong. As for the fourth fire 9 major formations, don't learn from him. I have read in an ancient book that the 5 elements formation is the power of heaven and earth. If 2 people learn it at the same time, then one will definitely fall." As he spoke, a blue light flashed, and in front of Soaring Serpent appeared a crystal crown the size of a fist. That transparent blue crystal crown was surrounded by a layer of faint black gas. On the body of the crystal crown, there was a blue flame brand of 9 crowns. Impressively, it was a 9th order darkness crystal crown. Soaring Serpent looked at Yin Xiaoyang and said, "What a grand gesture. I am afraid in the entire 5 elements mainland, only you have such a gesture. However, Yin Xiaoyang, I cannot accept this thing, and I will not let Hyoheim learn the 5 elements formation. Are you saying that I will allow you to teach him?" As he spoke, a blue light flashed in Soaring Serpent's eyes, and the crystal crown instantly returned to Yin Xiaoyang. Yin Xiaoyang did not force it. He raised his head, opened his eyes, and looked at the cloudless blue sky. He muttered to himself, "The appearance of chaos. The heavens will change greatly. This change, where exactly will it be? This child, Jidong, we must protect him well. We must not let him die before he matures. Perhaps this is the key to the continent's future." Jidong's cultivation this time lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. His mind was completely immersed in that endless darkness. It wasn't until his body was no longer nourished by the ultimate Yin fire that he gradually regained his senses and regained some mana that he gradually woke up. The clear cry of a phoenix rang out as He retracted her wings and landed on Jidong's shoulder. The color of her feathers turned fiery red once more. After all, she was a descendant of the vermilion bird. Even though she possessed 2 attributes, she still preferred the fiery red color that belonged to the vermilion bird. Her phoenix eyes grew even brighter. It was clear that this cultivation had greatly benefited her. Jidong stood up. Out of habit, he stretched his body after finishing his cultivation. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. First of all, the light sound of his bones stretching had disappeared. Secondly, he was shocked to find that his body seemed to have lengthened along with the stretching. His upper body leaned back, very naturally forming a bow. His hands were on the ground, and the muscles of his head and calves were pressed together. His body seemed to be folded in half. In his shock, Jidong hurriedly got up. His body was like a spring returning to its normal state. He moved his arms and legs, only to feel that his entire body seemed to have endless power. All of his joints were like flexible rubber bands, full of elasticity. He was actually able to move from any angle. Even the opposite angle was no exception. Pushing open the door, Jidong rushed out of the room excitedly. At this moment, the image of the soaring serpent displaying his strange defensive ability appeared in his mind. Of course, he understood that the changes in his body were all due to the soaring serpent. Even though he had only just experienced some of the changes, he knew that these changes would be of great use to him in the future. Because he was afraid of disturbing Yin Zhaoyang, who was in the middle of the wooden house, Jidong did not dare to shout loudly. However, he directly rushed out of the wooden house and looked around. "Little Dong Dong, what are you doing in such a hurry?" Yin Zhaoyang's voice sounded. Jidong turned to look at her and said, "Master's wife, where is Senior Soaring Serpent? Where is he?" What shocked Jidong was that although his head had turned back, his body was still facing the original direction. He hurriedly turned back and subconsciously touched his neck. There was nothing strange. Yin Zhaoyang seemed to have seen something very normal. She smiled slightly and said, "What? You want to find him for revenge?" Jidong hurriedly shook his head and said, "How can that be? I want to thank Senior Soaring Serpent for transforming my body this time." Yin Zhaoyang laughed and said, "You are indeed a freak. When Soaring Serpent transformed my body, the first thing I did when I woke up was to curse him. You should thank him." Jidong laughed and said, "Only by going through the hardships can one rise above others. Although it was very painful, I feel that it was worth it now." Yin Zhaoyang said, "Come, eat something first. Lan Lan will be back in a while. Even if you don't look for him, he will look for you. In the following period of time, you have to learn from him." Master's wife's abilities were mostly taught by Lan Lan. From now on, he will also teach you. Okay. Although Soaring Serpent's teachings were really painful, the effect was absolutely immediate. For this meal, Jidong did not drink the fish soup. There were only fruits and that white paste. However, this time, there were 2 big bowls of the paste. After eating it, he felt warm and indescribably comfortable. Yin Zhaoyang returned to his room when Jidong started eating. After eating, Jidong walked out of the courtyard and came to the beach. The bright and beautiful sunlight shone on his body. Looking at the endless sea, if it wasn't for the fear of disturbing Master and Master's wife, he would have wanted to scream loudly. At this moment, a blue light flashed and Soaring Serpent had already silently appeared in front of him. Just as Jidong was about to speak, Soaring Serpent suddenly flipped over and its thick tail swept straight towards Jidong's chest. Jidong was shocked and bent back. His body appeared to be folded in half again. Soaring Serpent's tail swept over his body but did not touch him at all. And not bad. You did not make me waste my energy. Follow me. As he spoke, Soaring Serpent was already swimming towards the beach. Ji Dong hurriedly chased after him and said, "Senior Soaring Serpent, thank you." Soaring Serpent chuckled and said, "What are you thanking me for? I just want to prove to you that what Vermilion Bird could do, I can also do. Your bones, muscles, and muscles have all changed. From now on, you have the same body as me. Do you still remember that day when I showed you the ability to transform your strength? You can start practicing now. There is no better place than the sea to train in transforming your strength. Soak yourself in the seawater, and I will teach you how to use your strength." Before Ji Dong could speak, he felt his body tighten, and he was pulled into the sea by Soaring Serpent. The waves were all-pervasive, and the potential of the seawater swallowed and surged towards him. The art of transforming strength stresses on avoiding the strong and attacking the weak. If the enemy is strong, then I am weak. If the enemy is weak, then I am strong. Watch carefully. As he spoke, Soaring Serpent's body straightened up in the seawater. When the waves crashed into him, his body suddenly rippled slightly, and that miraculous art of transforming strength once again appeared before Ji Dong. Although Soaring Serpent looked a little wretched, Ji Dong truly felt that he was a good teacher. He could also faintly feel that Soaring Serpent had paid a great price for the transformation of his body. At this time, with the foundation of his body, he could finally learn the art of transforming strength from Soaring Serpent. Filled with gratitude towards Soaring Serpent, Ji Dong focused 120% of his attention and began to train seriously. Very quickly, Soaring Serpent realized that Ji Dong was not actually a very smart person. However, he was a person who was absolutely willing to endure hardship and was extremely serious and persistent. Even though he had used the snake blood as a guide to forge the Soaring Serpent's body, Ji Dong's hard work had become an important part of the reason why he could quickly learn this supreme art. When Ji Dong's body had been transformed by Soaring Serpent and fell unconscious, Zhu Lao, Air, and Fury had already arrived. They had built another courtyard not too far away from the small courtyard. In terms of forging and construction, these were Zhu Lao, Air's forte. Although he had left the Heavenly STEM Academy, he did not leave a single thing behind for the Heavenly STEM Academy. He had directly rebuilt his workshop by the seaside, and Fury, who was of the same seniority as Ji Dong, had become a true laborer. Buying daily necessities and cooking were all his tasks. Ji Dong was a person who kept his promises. Apart from spending at least 16 hours in the seawater every day, he spent the rest of his time cultivating his mana and refining metals for Zhu Yan. His days were quite fulfilling and could not be considered lonely. Compared to when he had been training in the Fire Academy, his state of mind was much better now. In the blink of an eye, a month of training had passed. On this day, night had fallen. Ji Dong was not the only one in his room. Soaring Serpent had coiled into a snake formation, silently watching him. "Let's begin," said Soaring Serpent. Ji Dong nodded. He sat cross-legged, placed his hands on his knees, and assumed a posture of 5 hearts facing the sky. Although only a month had passed, he had grown a little taller, looking more and more like an adult. This had much to do with the body of the Soaring Serpent. The current Ji Dong's shoulders had become broader, and his inverted triangular figure had become extremely perfect. The body of the Soaring Serpent had corrected all the flaws in his body, and it could be said that the current Ji Dong had a perfect figure. This was also one of the reasons why Ji Dong was extremely grateful to the Soaring Serpent. The perfection of his body made him feel that he was one step closer to the flaming bar. Long ago, when the Soaring Serpent had used its own blood as a guide to help Ji Dong form the body of the Soaring Serpent, Ji Dong's mana had risen to level 40 after 3 days of recovery. However, under the Soaring Serpent's request, he did not attempt to break through to the 4th Crown Realm for the following month, because the Soaring Serpent had told him that the lower his mana was, the better the effects would be. This was because when he was struck by the waves, his mana would automatically protect his body, and the mana would also affect his perception of the transformation technique. Until today, A month later, when Jidong's transformation technique had reached minor accomplishment, the soaring serpent allowed him to break through to the fourth crown realm. Over the past month, although Jidong's main focus had been on learning the transformation technique, he had never stopped cultivating his mana. Now that he was attempting to break through to the fourth crown realm, it could be said that he had accumulated a lot of experience. Within the yin-yang swirl, the liquid ultimate dual fire mana began to circulate rapidly. The gold and black crown of yin-yang hovered above Jidong's head. His expression was calm. Comparing the fourth crown realm to the third crown realm, the difference was in the application of external energy. And long before Jidong had even learned the five elements matrix, he had already had a deep understanding of this aspect. After all, he possessed the ultimate dual fire, and added to his own core, the fire of chaos. He had a strong attraction towards all fire elemental energies. Breaking through to the fourth crown realm was just a matter of time. His will and mana fused into one, and the mana within his body gradually emanated out of his body. The entire wooden hut was instantly filled with the extremely thick ultimate dual fire mana. If not for Soaring Serpent releasing her own mana to protect the hut would have been instantly destroyed by the mana that Jidong had released with all his might. More and more mana was released. Following Soaring Serpent's instructions, Jidong combined the mana he released from his body with the fire elemental energies in the air. Using his own two types of mana as the source, he began to manipulate the mana in the outside world for his own use. This process itself was not difficult at all. The ultimate dual fire was already the king of flames, and Jidong's mana had already reached the peak of the third crown realm. The fire elemental energies in the air obediently accepted their summons. In the air outside the wooden hut, the red and blue elements that looked like smoke and clouds gathered into a ball, growing larger and larger in the air outside the hut. Although it was nighttime, it was still clearly discernible. Just as control alone had already reached the level of a fourth crown demon master, and was even better than an ordinary fourth crown demon master. But at this moment, a problem arose. Because Soaring Serpent was protecting the hut, Jidong's own ultimate dual fire had always been contained within his body, and Soaring Serpent was also an ultimate flame. This caused the yin fire to be stronger than the yang fire, and there was a deviation in the balance of yin and yang. As more and more dual fire elemental energies gathered outside, the imbalance of yin and yang became more and more obvious, and Jidong's control began to have problems. Soaring Serpent also noticed this problem and scolded himself in his heart. How could he have made such a mistake? But he could not interrupt Jidong's cultivation. Otherwise, not only would all his previous efforts be wasted, but it was also very likely that Jidong would be in danger of losing control. Just at this moment, Yin Xiaoyang's calm voice was heard. Soaring Serpent, you have to compensate me with a house. Withdraw your power and come out. Soaring Serpent had no choice but to withdraw his own yin fire. With a flash of his body, he was already out of the wooden hut. And almost at the same moment he left, the three wooden huts that accompanied the entire courtyard flashed with a gold and black light before disappearing, as if they had been wiped out of thin air. The beach was empty. This was the power of the ultimate flame. Not even ashes were left behind. Without Soaring Serpent suppression, Jidong's ultimate dual fire resonated with the dual elemental clouds in the air. Almost in an instant, the elemental clouds in the sky grew 10 times larger. Chapter 127. Yin Xiaoyang stood on the beach, quietly looking up at the sky. Yin Xiaorong and Soaring Serpent were beside him. Not far away, Zhu Lao, Air and Fury, also sensed the changes here and quickly rushed over. Looking at the elemental clouds, Yin Xiaorong said, "Such a scene, it is even better than breaking through to the fifth crown." Soaring Serpent said exasperatedly to Yin Xiaoyang, "You are deliberately blackmailing me. Just now, you only needed to help him balance his yin and yang, and he would naturally break through to the fourth crown. Why must you destroy the house?" Yin Xiaoyang said lightly, "Everything depends on oneself. Only then can one have the truest feeling." Yin Xiaorong's expression suddenly changed. "Not good," The yin and yang imbalance is too serious. Brother, hurry and help him. In midair, the red and blue elemental clouds were directly affected by Ji Dong's ultimate dual flames and instantly magnified by 10 times. Immediately, the gap between the yin and yang attributes, which had already deviated, widened greatly. The blue fourth fire obviously had the upper hand, completely suppressing the red third fire, and the third fire was already in danger. Originally, Ji Dong had been cultivating under Soaring Serpent's guidance. With Soaring Serpent by his side, he had absorbed a lot of yin fire, and his yin-yang vortex had already begun to show some imbalances. But with his divine yin-yang lock technique, it was not a big problem, and he could still slowly adjust himself. But today, at the crucial moment of breaking through to the fourth crown, in order to protect the wooden house, Soaring Serpent had obstructed the influence of Ji Dong's magic on the external elements, and had imperceptibly magnified this imbalance. Now it had completely spread out, and suddenly there was a dangerous scene of yin and yang imbalance. In midair, the blue elemental cloud was already a third larger than the red one, and the color of Ji Dong's ultimate dual flames had also begun to change. The black on the left was clearly stronger than the gold on the right, but this was not the key. Ji Dong's magic could be adjusted through his own strength. With the divine yin-yang lock technique and the yin-yang vortex harmonizing, there would not be any problems. But the danger he faced now was that the two elemental clouds in the air had already fused with his will, and this was the key to breaking through to the fourth crown. Now that the two elemental clouds were out of balance, the fourth fire cloud was clearly in danger of devouring the third fire cloud. Under the pressure, it had already begun to deviate and could no longer remain above Ji Dong's head. Ji Dong's will could not be said to be weak. After the two sovereigns' primordial wills had fused with his body, his mental strength had improved by leaps and bounds. But the situation he was facing now was different from that of an ordinary magician breaking through a bottleneck. If these two elemental clouds were balanced, then breaking through to the fourth crown would be as easy as lifting a finger. But at this moment, the huge elemental cloud, attracted by the ultimate dual flames, had already greatly exceeded his own strength. The advantage of the ultimate dual flames had now become a huge crisis that could affect success or failure. Ji Dong's face was already showing pain, and even his face was somewhat distorted. He was trying his best to balance the elemental clouds in the air. But the difference between the two was already more than a third. It was easier said than done to improve, especially when Ji Dong did not have the extra magic, and will to complete the 5 elements formation to help him break through to the fourth crown. Yin Xiaorong frowned slightly and said, "Big brother, just give him a hand. I'm afraid little Dong Dong can't hold on much longer." Yin Xiaoyang shook his head and said, "Don't worry, he will naturally have a way. Have you forgotten that he still has the help of the Eclipse Phoenix? It's enough to help him balance the elements." Yin Xiaoyang was right. The existence of the Eclipse Phoenix was indeed enough to help Ji Dong reverse the predicament he was in. Whether it was her helping Ji Dong release a 5 elements formation or directly using magic to help him, it could make up for the 1/3 difference in the elements. When Ji Dong realized that something was wrong, he had already sent a signal for help to her. But, to Ji Dong's surprise, the call that always worked actually failed this time. Horror, who was sleeping in a vermilion burr bracelet, did not respond to his call at all. Ji Dong naturally could not speak in the process of breaking through to the championship. All he could do was to desperately control it. Once he stopped, not only would he fail to break through to the championship, but he would also not be able to withstand the backlash from such a huge elemental cloud. Why hasn't he called the little phoenix out to help? The Soaring Serpent said doubtfully. Yin Xiaoyang also frowned slightly and said, "It's fine. Perhaps Ji Dong has his own ideas. Just wait and see." Fury respectfully said, "Grandmaster, is there really no danger? Little junior brother seems to be in great pain, and the elemental cloud in the sky is getting bigger and bigger." Yin Xiaoyang did not answer Fury's question, and Fury naturally did not dare to ask anymore. He looked at Zhu Yan, who was beside him, and the two of them could not help but reveal a look of anxiety. At that moment, Jidong only had one feeling, and that was tearing. It was as if his entire body was about to be torn apart. Be it his vermilion bird inner armor, or the soaring serpent physique, they could not help him at all because this tearing feeling was directly coming from the yin-yang swirls. His ultimate dual fire could affect the elements in the outside world, but the external elemental energy could also have a backlash on him, especially when the elemental cloud he was condensing was still growing. This situation was becoming more and more obvious. The dual attribute fire elements that had completely deviated from their equilibrium had already begun to clash with each other. The Bing fire elemental cloud could not hold on any longer, and the edges had already begun to be devoured by the Ding fire elemental cloud. As this continued, the gap between the two would undoubtedly become wider and wider. The ultimate dual fire on Jidong's body had also begun to show the same situation. A wisp of blood spread out from the corner of his mouth, and his body also began to tremble violently. Yin Xiaorong turned pale with fright. As a supreme martial artist powerhouse, Her Majesty Tai, of course, she knew what kind of situation was in front of her. This was the backlash of failing to achieve success, and it was also the most dangerous kind of qi deviation. Big brother, Yin Xiaorong called out anxiously. At that moment, among everyone present, only Yin Xiaoyang and Zhu Yin were Yang Fire Devil Masters. Before Yin Xiaoyang could speak, Zhu Yin could no longer bear it. These days, Jidong had been cultivating so hard, but he still did not forget to help him release the ultimate dual fire to complete the forging. The relationship between them had undoubtedly deepened. Seeing that Jidong was facing such a crisis, how could he sit back and do nothing? However, just as Zhu Yin took a step forward, Yin Xiaoyang raised his right hand. Everyone only felt that the air instantly became sticky and solidified, and Zhu Yin's body was forcibly bounced back to where he was, unable to move. No one moved. Yin Xiaoyang's voice was still calm, and no emotion could be heard from it. Yin Xiaorong was really anxious. Big brother, if anything happens to little Dong Dong, I will fight you to the death. At that moment, Yin Xiaoyang slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the elemental cloud in the sky that was about to collapse, his eyes were still calm. Only his right hand slowly turned up, as if he was preparing for something. At this moment, a faint white halo suddenly appeared on Jidong's body. The vermilion bird inner armor had automatically released itself under the immense pressure, and the white wings abruptly unfurled. As they flapped, Jidong's body stabilized slightly. In the next moment, a gentle white light lit up in the middle of Jidong's chest. It was a faint white flame that was as thin as silk. It was far too small and even looked like a speck of white light. However, it was this speck of white light that caused the entire air to be filled with an aura that seemed to solidify. The anxiety on Yin Xiaorong's face was immediately replaced by shock. Yin Xiaoyang's calm eyes also became completely focused at that moment. He shouted, "Xiaorong, look carefully and feel it carefully." The moment that inconspicuous white light appeared in front of Jidong's chest, everything in the surroundings began to change. The first thing that changed was the unbalanced ultimate dual fire on both sides of Jidong's body. The black and gold flames were almost restored to their balanced state in an instant. The extra ultimate Yin fire turned into black light and disappeared into the white light. Then, the black and gold light revolved around Jidong's body, instantly forming a huge black and gold vortex. It was the yin-yang vortex of origin mana in Jidong's chest. The yin-yang vortex was released. This was the first time in Jidong's history that such a situation had happened. All the ultimate dual fire revolved violently with the white light as the center. Strong mana fluctuations trembled in the air, and the extremely unbalanced elemental clouds froze for a moment. Then, the two unbalanced elemental clouds seemed to be affected by the yin-yang vortex below, and they slowly revolved. The faint white light seemed to flicker for a moment. In the sky, the yin fire elements that were more than the yang fire seemed to be extinguished in an instant, and the extra 1/3 of mana disappeared without a trace. The white light in front of Ji-dong's chest also calmed down, and the faint white flames gradually disappeared without a trace. The elemental clouds in the sky and the ultimate dual fire mana around Ji-dong began to revolve violently. They revolved faster and faster, but no matter what, they had already returned to the orbit of yin and yang balance. A strange scene suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Beside Ji-dong was the black and gold vortex, and in the air above his head was the huge red and blue vortex. The two vortexes echoed each other, producing an aura that verified and reinforced each other. Yin Zhaorong sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "The flame of chaos is indeed the flame of chaos. This is its automatic protection. Big brother, did you think of this long ago?" Yin Zhaoyang shook his head and said, "I also didn't expect the flame of chaos to appear. I originally thought that the devouring fire phoenix would help Ji-dong, but now it seems that something has happened to that little phoenix. The flame of chaos was forced out by the changes in the outside world. The power of chaos is the most balanced power in the world. The yin and yang mana that Ji-dong cultivates is very dangerous at any time. Once the balance is lost, it will backfire on its owner, and there is a possibility of instant death. But now that he has the flame of chaos as his mana source, this situation is not a problem at all. The degree of deviation just now can be corrected by the flame of chaos in an instant. Not only can Ji-dong successfully break through to the fourth crown, but from now on, the yin and yang attributes will no longer have any adverse effects on him. This time, we have also benefited a lot. After feeling the aura of the flame of chaos, Zhaorong, we should also take this opportunity to go into closed-door training for a while." Yin Zhaorong nodded and said, "That's right. We can't let this momentary enlightenment disappear. This time, little Dong Dong has helped us a lot. I don't know if he can use the enlightenment of the flame of chaos to help me break through the level that has not improved for 10 years. Lan Lan, I will leave little Dong Dong to you. Continue to teach him your ability. Big brother and I will go into closed-door training for at least a month, at most 3 months." The flying serpent laughed and said, "Don't worry. Leave little Dong Dong to me. I will take good care of him." Yin Zhaorong and Yin Zhaorong did not dare to be negligent. The brother and sister looked at each other. Yin Zhaoyang waved his hand in the void, and a strong red light suddenly soared into the sky. Just as he waved his hand, it had already turned into a red fire dragon that was about 10 meters long. The fire dragon spread its wings, swept past Yin Zhaoyang, and carried him high into the sky. The blue scepter in Yin Zhaorong's hand did the same action, but what appeared was a flying serpent in the form of energy. It also carried her body and followed behind Yin Zhaoyang. In the blink of an eye, the two supreme masters had disappeared into the horizon. At this time, Ji-dong, who was sitting there, had already calmed down. The golden and black yin-yang vortex around his body was rotating faster and faster, and the sky was completely illuminated by the huge two-colored vortex cloud. Under the resonance, a long roar came from Ji-dong's mouth, and the two-colored yin-yang corona above his head shone brightly. It was as if there was a flash of lightning in the sky. The elemental cloud in the sky floated down and merged with the yin-yang vortex around Ji-dong's body. In an instant, an incomparably surging wave of magic was first released and then suddenly converged. Ji-dong's body suddenly lit up, and all the magic outside his body disappeared. The vermilion bird armor on his body had already turned into a strange scene of half gold and half black. All the light surged towards the top of his head at the same time. Gold and black, the two-colored light spread all the way to the yin-yang corona, and finally turned into two small and extremely concentrated flames that overlapped on the fourth crown peak on the left. The fourth crown had finally broken through successfully. However, what surprised Yu Yin and Fury was that at this moment, the crown star that appeared on Ji-dong's yin-yang corona that represented his level was not the half-star that should be after breaking through the bottleneck, but a complete star. In other words, at this time, Ji-dong's magic power was not at level 41, but level 42. At the same time that the fourth crown was formed, a loud and clear phoenix cry sounded from Ji-dong's right wrist. Chapter 128. When all the mana surged into his body, Ji-dong felt his entire body swell up. The yin-yang vortex in his body stagnated for a moment, but in the next moment, the yin-yang vortex violently contracted. The originally liquefied, dual-colored ultimate flames underwent minute changes. Whether it was the Bingwu primordial yang, sacred fire, or the Dingxi nether spirit fire, there were specks of starlight. Each speck of starlight seemed to be the result of extremely condensed mana solidifying. These specks of mana starlight flowed within the yin-yang vortex's liquid mana. At that moment, the yin-yang vortex had abruptly shrunk to a third of its original size, making the wisp of chaotic flame at its core even more obvious. The chaotic flame seemed to have grown slightly larger, and the white flame had turned from a wisp to a wisp. Breaking through to the quadruple crown not only allowed Ji-dong to better communicate with the mana in the outside world, but at the same time, his yin-yang vortex had also become more condensed. After the yin-yang vortex shrank, the space save would undoubtedly allow him to condense even more mana, laying a foundation for future improvements. At that moment, Ji-dong suddenly felt a powerful suction force coming from his right wrist. The newly formed yin-yang vortex in his body immediately split off a large amount of mana and surged towards his right wrist. Even the chaotic flame seemed to split off a tiny bit and fuse with the mana. With his own thoughts, Ji-dong could completely control the output of mana. However, when he felt the source of the suction force, not only did he not stop it, he even increased the output of his mana. This was because the source of the suction force was the Eclipse Phoenix that had not responded no matter how he called out to it, Little Flame. Ji-dong could vaguely sense what Little Flame was about to do. Accompanied by a resonant phoenix cry, an intense golden red light shot out from Ji-dong's vermilion burr bracelet. Little Flame's small body rose into the air and spread its wings, floating above Ji-dong's head. At that moment, the Eclipse Phoenix's eyes were tightly shut. Its golden red body flickered as it flickered with an extremely unstable magical power. Ji-dong had already raised his right hand, and a large amount of ultimate dual fire surged out and poured into Fire's body. Fire's body slightly trembled, and the golden red radiance on her body also began to change. From golden red to a deep black, and from black back to golden red, this process continued to repeat. Every time her body changed, she had to absorb a large amount of mana from the outside world. Even with Ji-dong's mana that had just risen to the fourth crown, he was starting to feel a little overwhelmed. The soaring serpent looked at the scene in front of it in astonishment and murmured, "This little fellow is about to advance." No wonder she didn't come out to help when Ji-dong was in danger. So it turns out that she can't even take care of herself. What a lucky little fellow. To have a companion like Ji-dong is her fortune. Despite being congenitally deficient, she can advance in such a short period of time. How enviable. Ji-dong had broken through to the fourth crown, but before he could be excited, he encountered the problem of Little Flame also advancing. If Yin Zhaoyang and Yin Zhaorong hadn't left, he could still use their respective ultimate flames to help Little Flame. But they had already left, and the only one who could help Little Flame was Ji-dong himself. Faced with Little Flame's increasingly intense absorption, Ji-dong's expression gradually became solemn. But the more it was in such a situation, the calmer his heart became. This was the temperament that the god of wine had cultivated in his previous life. Panic was often the prelude to destruction. Only by maintaining calm in any situation could one deal with any unforeseen circumstances. Ji-dong's eyes flashed, and he raised his left hand. His left hand suddenly waved in the air, and a wave of mana forcefully cut off his assistance to Little Flame. In midair, Fire's originally calm body immediately began to tremble violently. The constantly changing light on her body immediately became extremely unstable. Streaks of black and gold lightning flickered. Her head was also lifted up due to the intense pain. And at this moment, Ji-dong used this moment to draw a complete circle in the air with both hands. His eyes shone with divine light, and the mana of both elements simultaneously burst forth. In the sky, the elemental cloud reappeared. Under the summoning of his ultimate dual flames, the two major elements of the fourth and third fire began to rapidly condense again. Two great formations with the totem of the vermilion bird and the totem of the soaring serpent simultaneously appeared on both sides of Jidong's body. It was the yin-yang fire formation. With a lift of both hands, the two great formations rose into the air. Jidong once again poured out his ultimate dual flames without hesitation. The yin-yang vortex outside his body that had previously disappeared when he broke through to the realm of four crowns appeared once again under the effect of the two great formations. It revolved around his body once more. The elements of the third and fourth fire that Jidong had summoned in the air frantically surged into Jidong's body under the enormous suction of the yin-yang vortex. After passing through Jidong's body, they were filtered, condensed, and concentrated before being released into the air and poured into Little Flame's body. Little Flame's unstable mana gradually calmed down. With the help of the two great formations, Jidong had now become a transit point. He converted the fire elements he had absorbed through his own body into the ultimate dual flames before injecting them into Little Flame. Compared to the previous situation where he had to do nothing, he was much more relaxed. Even the soaring serpent, who was the divine beast of the fourth fire, could not help but exclaim in admiration. Jidong's adaptability could be said to be impeccable. When he was trying to break through to the realm of four crowns, Little Flame had not been able to help him. However, when Little Flame was breaking through, Jidong had become a powerful helper for her. Whether it was temperament or ability, the soaring serpent was very satisfied with Jidong. From a certain perspective, he was now Jidong's teacher. Seeing his own disciples so outstanding, how could he not be happy? As time passed, the yin-yang crown on top of Jidong's head grew brighter and brighter. After all, the output of mana was much faster than the absorption, and his mana had already begun to weaken. With a flick of his wrist, Jidong's two crystal cores fell into his palm. He had no choice but to begin borrowing the mana from the crystal cores to help Little Flame improve. Time did not even allow him to take the mana recovery pills that Yao Qianshu had given him. Vaguely, Jidong discovered that there was a mysterious spiritual connection between him and Little Flame. He could sense that Little Flame had already reached the most critical moment. A strange light flashed in the soaring serpent's eyes as he said, "So that's how it is." No wonder, Fury asked doubtfully, "Senior soaring serpent, what do you mean by so that's how it is? What is this bird whose body is constantly changing colors? Why is she together with Jidong? And what's going on here?" The soaring serpent said, "This little fellow is Jidong's magical beast companion. Her mother is the same as me, one of the heavenly stem divine beasts, the divine beast of fire, the vermilion bird. However, this little fellow cannot be considered a vermilion bird. As early as 3,000 years ago, when the vermilion bird gave birth to her, it just so happened that it encountered a solar eclipse. As a result, the solar eclipse in fire launched a sneak attack and invaded the vermilion bird's egg, causing this little fellow to almost lose her life. It was the vermilion bird's own natal true fire that protected her, allowing her to persevere. But even after 3,000 years, the vermilion bird still has not hatched her. It was your brother, Jidong, who helped the vermilion bird hatch this little fellow, allowing her to be like Jidong, possessing the ultimate dual fire fiend. However, this little fellow's body was congenitally deficient due to the solar eclipse in fire, and after being born, her fiend strength was only at the 4th rank. Only by following Jidong could her body possibly recover. It was not only because of Jidong's ultimate dual fire fiend, but perhaps it also had something to do with the fire of chaos. The vermilion bird was very clever, not hesitating to forge an inner armor for Jidong. Fury suddenly understood, so that's how it is. No wonder vermilion bird was protecting Jidong back in the mountains. I've never heard Jidong mention it in detail. So what do you mean by so that's how it is? The soaring serpent said, This little fellow has always been with Ji-dong. Ji-dong's origin of chaos has finally been ignited, transforming into the flames of chaos. In addition to learning the 5 elements array, some of her intrinsic strength has been awakened. In terms of ability level, she already has the strength to break through to the 5th order. However, her physique does not allow her to advance. Just now, after being affected by Ji-dong's breakthrough to the 4th crown, this little fellow's magical power has most likely become restless and has automatically initiated an attack on the 5th order. As a result, her body is inherently lacking, which is why she cannot rely on her own strength to complete her evolution. Now, with Ji-dong's help, there is a possibility for her to complete her evolution. That fellow vermilion bird may not be much, but her clan is most particular about the cycle of karma. As the soaring serpent spoke up to this point, in midair, her let out an extremely clear phoenix cry. Compared to before, this phoenix cry was much sharper, piercing straight into the blue dome of heaven. The magical power that Ji-dong had poured into her was blocked by a layer of elemental energy. At the same time, black and gold rays of light simultaneously appeared on Hua-er's body. Strange magic patterns constantly appeared on her body, transforming into resplendent rays of light that flickered in the air. Hua-er's body was originally only 1 meter long, but at this moment it began to change. Accompanied by the fluctuations of the magic patterns, 3 tail feathers popped out from her tail. The tail feathers slowly lengthened until they were 1.5 meters long, transforming into beautiful tail feathers. Her wings spread out, and as her body grew larger, a layer of solid feathers appeared on her wings. On top of her head, the phoenix coronet rose up, emitting a faint golden light. Compared to her original flamingo appearance, Hua-er had clearly become more beautiful. With a flap of her wings, Hua-er let out another phoenix cry. Her entire body first exploded with a ball of golden light, which was quickly followed by a ball of black light. Her wings spread out, and she excitedly soared above Ji-dong's head, constantly circling around Ji-dong's body. Ji-dong clearly heaved a sigh of relief. The crystal core in his hand had already turned to dust. Seeing Hua-er's excited appearance, he could not help but reveal a smile on his face. That's right, the Eclipse Phoenix Hua-er had advanced from the 4th rank to the 5th rank. There was a qualitative leap in every aspect, and the shortcomings of her body had also been made up for to a certain extent. With a flash of light, Hua-er plunged into Ji-dong's embrace. She retracted her wings, and the golden phoenix coronet constantly rubbed against Ji-dong's neck, intimately letting out soft cries from time to time. Ji-dong could feel her gratitude, and gently stroked Hua-er's feathers, which had become much stiffer, and said, "Hua-er, your weight has increased by quite a bit. I can't carry you anymore." After her evolution, Hua-er's body had grown to a length of 1.5 meters, and in addition to her 3 tail feathers that were 1.5 meters long, she was in Ji-dong's embrace, and her tail feathers were already resting on the ground. Hua-er let out another 2 cries, and no matter what, she refused to leave Ji-dong's embrace. He. The soaring serpent's sinister laughter rang out, and only then did Hua-er wake up. She vigilantly raised her head and looked at the soaring serpent. With a flash, she had already flown behind Ji-dong, and her 2 phoenix claws grabbed onto Ji-dong's shoulders. She hid her body and only revealed her phoenix head to look at the soaring serpent. The soaring serpent snorted and said, "Little fellow, am I that scary? Little dong-dong, you may have broken through to the 4th crown, but look, you've already burned down the house. Your Grandmaster and Grandmaster's wife have gone into seclusion. You'll have to think of a place to stay yourself." Fury and Zhu Yin looked at each other, and they could not help but smile. Earlier, they had clearly heard that Yin Zhaoyang had made the soaring serpent pay for the house. Ji-dong was a little embarrassed as he looked at the empty beach and said, "I'll build the house. Grandmaster and Grandmaster's wife have gone into seclusion? In my opinion, you don't have to rush to build a house. Take it slow. Your cultivation has just risen to 4 crowns, so what's more important is to consolidate it. These few days, you and I have been learning the power transformation technique, and you could be considered to have made some progress. Your future achievements will depend on your own hard work. You must remember, although the power transformation technique mainly relies on your body, mana is also indispensable because every time your own mana increases, your body will also be transformed and evolved by the mana. How about this? Go stay with Zhu Yin and the others for a few days. Let's limit it to 10 days and consolidate your own mana. 10 days later, I'll start teaching you skills. Hearing that the soaring serpent wanted Jidong to stay at his place, Zhu Yin immediately smiled. Good, good. Brother, come with me. Big brother has plenty of delicious food. The soaring serpent coldly snorted. Little Zhu Yin, don't blame me for not warning you. If you delay your cultivation because of forging, I will drag you into the sea to have some fun. Zhu Yin hurriedly said, How could that be? Senior soaring serpent, although forging is very important to me, my brother is equally important. Just leave the matter of building the house to me. 10 days passed quickly. Zhu Yin's efficiency was indeed very high. When Jidong went into seclusion for 10 days, allowing his mana to become even more condensed, he walked out of his room. He saw that the original place, the wooden house, the small courtyard, had all been restored to its original state. It was actually exactly the same as before. After these 10 days of cultivation, Jidong discovered that after his mana reached 4 crowns, although his rate of improvement did not slow down, the amount of mana required to increase by 1 level had increased exponentially. Chapter 129. After one's mana reached 4 crowns, the greatest benefit was that one's will was no longer limited to fusing with one's own mana. The realm of 4 crowns was not only an increase in mana, it was more condensed, and the body and mana were further integrated. At the same time, one's mental strength had also made great progress. In addition to controlling one's own mana, there was already enough mental strength to be released from the body to control the elemental power that came from the outside world, combining it with one's own mana. In this way, for a magician, it was undoubtedly a qualitative leap in strength. This was especially true for Jidong. Although his mana was only at 4 crowns, his mental strength was many times stronger than the other 4 crowns magicians. Using his own mana to summon elemental clouds was a miracle that could only be achieved by a 7 crowns magician, and he had already achieved it at 4 crowns. Admittedly, it was because he had the innate advantage of having the ultimate dual flames, but it was also inseparable from his own strong will. Otherwise, even if he produced elemental clouds, he would not have been able to control them. When leaving the underground palace, Jidong and Yao Qianshu met Huang Liming and the others. At that time, Jidong relied on Little Flame and the 5 Elements formation, as well as Yao Qianshu's amplification to use the Flame Monarch body. Now that his strength had broken through to 4 crowns, even without the help of Yao Qianshu's Wood to Fire, he could still use Little Flame and the 5 Elements formation to release the Monarch body. Moreover, not only the Flame Monarch body, but also the Shadow Flame Devil King's possession. In other words, with his own strength, he might be able to fight against a 6 crowns magician. When Jidong finished his closed-door training, another person entered into closed-door training. That person was Fury. When Jidong first met him, Fury's cultivation had already reached level 69. At the age of 29, this level could be said to be unprecedented. After these days of hard work, he was finally about to reach level 70. Only when his mana reached level 70 would he have the possibility of reaching the 7 crowns. In the Yin-Yang school, Zhurong had said that starting from the 6 crowns, every increase in the Yin and Yang magician's crown was a huge bottleneck. Breaking through the 6 crowns was a dividing line, but the 7 crowns, the 8 crowns, and the 9 crowns were even more difficult to break through than the 6 crowns. This was also why there were so many Yin and Yang magicians, but so few of them were truly strong. Especially starting from the 6 crowns, there was a great deal of danger. If one was not careful, not only would all their previous efforts be wasted, it was very possible that they would go mad. Ji Dong slowly walked to the seaside. At this time, Zhu Yin was busy forging, Fury was in closed-door training, and the flying serpent was nowhere to be found. He was alone. The sea before him was calm, and the sky was covered in dark clouds. The sun could not be seen, and only the sound of the waves continuously flowed into his ears. Flaming Bar, do you know? My strength has increased again. With the 4 crowns and flame, of the 5th order, I'm already able to face a 6-crown magician. But what level do I have to reach to have the power to protect you? 9 crowns? Ji Dong did not know, but he could see from the past that the Flaming Bar could make the 10th order ice dragon yield, and could make the fire divine beast vermilion bird fear. Her strength, perhaps even a 9-crown magician, could not compare. But with her powerful strength, why did she need protection in the human world, and could not use her own strength? Flaming Bar, why won't you tell me? You've already been in closed-door training for a while. When will it end? Don't you know, I really miss you. Squatting down, Ji Dong used his finger to gently glide across the sand, repeatedly writing the 2 words Flaming Bar. Every time he wrote it, the longing in his heart seemed to increase. He suddenly realized, back in the Fire Academy, the days when he was able to mix drinks for the Flaming Bar every day were actually the happiest days for him. Although his strength was improving with each passing day, but not being able to see the Flaming Bar, his heart was always empty, and there was not the slightest bit of happiness to speak of. Right at this moment, suddenly, Ji Dong's eyes narrowed. Almost without any hesitation, his entire body had already borrowed the strength of a palm strike to roll out horizontally on the beach. In midair, the intense ultimate dual fire exploded. The gold and black dual-colored flames ignited on his body. At the same time, the vermilion bird inner armor brazenly appeared, both wings flapping hard as his body rolled, once again changing direction, causing him to leap forward from the horizontal roll. In the blink of an eye, he was already more than 10 meters away. The soaring serpent's satisfied voice sounded out. Very good, to be able to react so quickly in a state of unease. Not bad at all. Come down. At some unknown time, the soaring serpent had already appeared on the beach. Previously, Ji Dong's violent reaction was actually because a pebble had shot towards his body. From the looks of it, Ji Dong seemed to be a little oversensitive, but what if this was a sneak attack from an enemy? Retracting the vermilion bird wings, Ji Dong floated down to stand in front of the soaring serpent. Senior soaring serpent. The soaring serpent straightened the front half of its body, maintaining the same height as Ji Dong, and said, "Little Dong Dong, what are you thinking about? Your mind is not your own. This is not a good sign. Is it because you've been too lonely in your training?" Ji Dong shook his head and said, "It's nothing." The soaring serpent chuckled and said, "It looks like your devil energy has been consolidated. Since there's nothing else, I will start teaching you devil skills today, so that practicing devil skills will not be so boring and boring. Tell me, how do you differentiate devil skills?" Ji Dong said, "Devil skills are differentiated according to the 5 elements, yin and yang attributes, divided into 10 types. There are attack, defense, control, transformation, and so on." The soaring serpent shook its head and said, "No matter how it changes, it still remains the same. In my opinion, devil skills are divided into 2 types. One is close combat attacks, the other is control attacks, and defense is the same. In theory, close combat attacks are definitely more powerful than control attacks, but the difficulty lies in the fact that it needs to be close to the opponent, and the power of the attack is also limited by the range. Although the power of control attacks is weaker than close combat attacks, but it wins in the fact that it can change in a myriad of ways. More importantly, when carrying out control attacks, the Devil Master has sufficient time to observe the battlefield situation and make the most correct choice. Therefore, most outstanding Devil Masters mainly focus on control attacks, just like your master's wife and your master ancestor. Ji Dong's heart stirred. According to the soaring serpent's words, the devil skills he had inherited from the 2 sovereigns should be classified as close combat devil skills. Even the Dark Moon Flame, which was a long-distance devil skill, did not seem to be a control attack. The soaring serpent said, "What I'm going to teach you now is the control attack devil skill. When your master ancestor and the rest return, they will teach you the sea fire element. If you are able to combine these two elements together, you will definitely be able to bring out the advantage of having an ultimate dual fire. The D fire is the Een fire, and since it is the Een fire, it must be Een catching the opponent by surprise and catching them off guard. My control devil skill is released with the soaring serpent as the main body, using the Een fire to condense into a soaring serpent form. And in harmony with the totem constellation, it can absorb the D fire devilish energy in the air to the greatest extent. Therefore, the first step you must take is to transform the totem into your own. Transform the totem into my own? Jidong looked at the soaring serpent in puzzlement. The soaring serpent nodded its head and said, "To be more accurate, it is to transform your Een fire into a soaring serpent. In the process of condensing your devilish energy into a totem, it is not only a practice for your control of devilish energy, but also a preparation for your devil skill attack. Watch carefully." As it spoke, a blue light flashed in the soaring serpent's eyes. Jidong could clearly feel the D fire elemental energy in the air rapidly condensing, gradually taking shape in front of the soaring serpent. In the beginning, it was just an elemental energy that was hard to see with the naked eye, but as the devilish energy became more and more condensed, it gradually turned into specks of blue light, the light becoming more and more intense, gradually combining into a shape. With the soaring serpent's strength, if he wanted to complete the process of transformation, he could do it in an instant. At this time, he was purposely slowing down the process so that Jidong could see it clearly and also better understand the entire process. Gradually, the blue light gradually condensed into an illusory shadow, just like the totem that appeared on the back of a fourth fire demon master when he used a powerful devil skill. However, the soaring serpent did not stop. More and more D fire elemental energy was poured into it, causing the shadow of the soaring serpent in front of him to gradually become clearer, and more condensed. In the end, it actually looked exactly like the soaring serpent itself, as if it had a real body, and even its eyes were filled with a lively charm. Seeing this strange scene in front of him, Jidong could not help but widen his eyes. The soaring serpent stopped pouring its devilish energy and said, "Little Dong Dong, do you know why, although we are all 10th level magical beasts, we heavenly stems divine beasts are stronger than ordinary 10th level magical beasts?" Jidong said, "Because you are heavenly stems divine beasts, you're able to better fuse with the devilish energy of your element and also better control it." The soaring serpent said, "That's right. As heavenly stems divine beasts, we are already in harmony with the will of the heavens. As a result, all the devil skills that the totem uses after transformation are the highest level of devil skills. At the highest level, we can even condense a pure energy soaring serpent with the exact same power as our original body, which is equivalent to creating another soaring serpent. Of course, at this point, no one has been able to do it, not even I can. But it is possible for you because you have the flame of chaos. Chaos is creation. Remember these words of mine. Chaos is creation. Jidong's mind stirred. Although he still did not fully understand, he still firmly remembered these words. The soaring serpent said, "Come, I will begin to teach you the devil skills of my soaring serpent lineage, from the basic skills to the ultimate skills. How much you can comprehend will depend on your own ability." A year later, at the coast of the East Sea, Jidong stood quietly on the beach, staring ahead. In a year's time, he had become a 16-year-old youth. At this time, Jidong had grown to about 8 meters tall, with a well-proportioned figure. His black hair was scattered over his shoulders, and his slightly dark bronze skin shone with a healthy luster. Under the illumination of the sun, a faint white halo could be seen vaguely under it. 30 meters away opposite him, Fury, the Thunder Emperor, was bare-chested, revealing his muscles that were 10 times harder than granite. His strong physique was like a Hercules descending to the mortal world. His short, bluish-purple hair stood erect, filled with a threatening aura, and his eyes flashed with cold lightning, as if thunder could erupt at any time. Both of them were empty-handed. Fury did not use any magical weapon, and Jidong's twin radiance of sun and moon gloves were not in his hands. They stared at each other, their gazes unyielding. Not far away, Yin Zhaoyong, Yin Zhaorong, and Zhu Yin stood there, while the divine beast of fire, the soaring serpent, lay lazily on the beach, enjoying the warmth brought by the sun. Their gazes were fixed on the two brothers. "Little brother, I will not be lenient." Fury laughed loudly, and Hyoheim said. Jidong said in a deep voice, "Me too. Please advise me, senior brother." Yes, this was the battle between the Thunder Emperor and Jidong. The day of the holy and demonic passage opening was getting closer and closer. Although Fury had already left the Yin-Yang Hall, he still decided to participate in this operation. The honor of the continent was more important than an individual. Even if he was dissatisfied with the Heavenly STEM Academy, he would not miss this important event that was held once every 5 years. Jidong clearly remembered what Yao Qianshu had said to him, saying that he would also participate in the battle of the holy and demonic passage. Whether to let him go or not became the focus of everyone's debate. The soaring serpent expressed its support, but Yin Zhaorong strongly opposed it. Originally, under such circumstances, it would be difficult for Jidong to be allowed to go, so the final decision fell into the hands of Yin Zhaoyong and Shengguang. Yin Zhaoyong did not explicitly agree or disagree. He said that if Jidong could defeat Fury in a fair battle, it would prove that he had the ability to protect himself, and he could participate in the battle of the Holy Evil Island. Otherwise, he would have to wait for another 5 years. Therefore, the current situation appeared. Jidong had lived here for more than a year. There is no doubt that in this year his strength had undergone tremendous changes, and it was not the first time he had undergone a qualitative change. However, the opponent he was facing now was the former first seat of the Yin-Yang School, and also the strongest person in the history of the Yin-Yang School, the Thunder Emperor. Just 2 months ago, under the protection of Yin Zhaoyong and Yin Zhaorong, Fury finally broke through the bottleneck of 7 crowns and officially advanced from a Yang Thunder Heaven Warrior to a Yang Thunder Heaven Master. In terms of strength, with Fury and his purple Thunder Sky Dragon, even the senior Third Fire Heaven Master Zhu Yin had to admit that he was no match for Fury. Moreover, Fury's magic was of the Yang Thunder attribute. The suppression of Jidong's ultimate dual fire was far less intense than that of the 5 elements. Although Jidong had made great progress in this year, his magic was only at level 47. When Yin Zhaoyong proposed this challenge, Jidong understood that his Grandmaster was indirectly rejecting his request. Level 47 was also 4 crowns. 4 crowns against 7 crowns. Ultimate dual fire against Yang Thunder. He could not produce any elemental advantage at all. This battle could be said to be extremely unfair. Neither side could use any magic weapons or magical beasts to help. But even so, did he have a chance of winning? However, no matter what, Jidong chose to try. He wanted to verify the results of his hard work in the past year. He wanted to see how big the gap between him and his senior brother was. There was no doubt that Fury and Jidong were both geniuses of their generation. Even Yin Zhaoyong could not judge how this battle would turn out. This was also a test for Jidong. Chapter 130. From the point of view of his heart, Fury hoped that this time Jidong could go to the holy capital battlefield with him. There was no doubt that Jidong, who killed Ji Feng in an instant a year ago, would be a powerful helper on the battlefield, but he also understood the position of Jidong in the hearts of the Master Ancestor and Master's wife. The holy evil battlefield was full of unpredictable dangers. Who could say what would happen? Therefore, when Flying Snake and Yin Zhaorong were arguing, Fury did not participate in the opinion. At this time, facing Jidong, he did not have the idea of going easy on him. What a joke. Going easy on him in front of 2 strong masters. Wasn't that asking for trouble? "Little junior brother, please," Fury yelled. His naked upper body was instantly covered in a layer of bluish-purple light. From time to time, crackling sounds of thunder and lightning could be heard. As the senior brother and their cultivation levels were so much lower than each other, of course, he could not make the first move. He gave the opportunity to Ji-dong to make the first move. Ji-dong took a deep breath, and his whole body seemed to expand a bit with this breath. On the surface of his skin, the milky white light suddenly became stronger, and the phoenix feather-shaped vermilion bird inner armor quietly appeared, covering his whole body. At this time, he no longer needed to use the vermilion bird inner armor taught by the flaming bar to release it. He only needed to fuse his mind with the vermilion bird inner armor branded inside his skin, and he could release it in an instant. At the same time, his own magic and the vermilion bird inner armor completed the communication. Black and gold, 4 crowns, 3.5 stars, representing the 47th level of the 3rd Fire Grandmaster Yin-Yang crown, appeared above Ji-dong's head. The black and gold ultimate dual fire that rose was not like the previous ones, but circled around Ji-dong's body. This was a natural change after Ji-dong broke through the realm of 4 crowns. The ultimate dual fire appeared, and the magic elements in the sky suddenly became rich, and an invisible violent aura spread. Ji-dong's eyes turned from icy cold to blazing hot. His arrogance and the ruthlessness of the fire element seemed to have formed a perfect fusion in an instant. Although he was not as tall as Fury, at this moment, the aura he emitted was like that of a monarch descending. His aura was even more imposing. This was a ruthless monarch, a tyrant of a generation. Ji-dong's hands slowly raised along with the flames that circled around him. His extremely coordinated body suddenly shook, and in an instant, 2 rings of light, 1 gold and 1 black, appeared. The vermilion birds stared intently, and the flying serpents stared coldly. They actually released the Yin and Yang dual fire formation at this moment. When he released the vermilion bird inner armor and spread his wings, Ji-dong's aura had already risen to the level of a 5-crown demon master, and a 5-crown demon master with the ultimate dual fire. At this moment, when the dual fire formation appeared, his entire aura was immediately pushed to the peak. Thunder Emperor Fury's expression also became solemn at this moment. For more than a year, the two of them could be said to have cultivated separately. Although Fury knew that Ji-dong was constantly growing, he did not know to what extent his cultivation had improved. Only now, when he faced his little junior brother, did he understand that with the advantage of his own attributes and the help of the 5 elements formation, Ji-dong could already rely on his own strength to fight against the 6-crown heaven warrior without the help of the eroding fire phoenix. Fury could not help but say, "Little junior brother, your improvement is really shocking. Come, let me see your 5 elements formation." "Senior brother, be careful." With a shout, Ji-dong took a big step forward, and his entire body had already shot out as if he was gliding along the ground. The vermilion bird's wings spread open behind his back, and it looked as if the ultimate dual fire was flying close to the ground. With his arms stretched out by his sides, Ji-dong's eyes were already filled with a strong fighting spirit. Even if he was facing the Thunder Emperor Fury, he did not feel the slightest bit of fear. His hands swung out at the same time, gold and black. 2 flames shot out at the same time, leaving behind 2 dazzling trails of light on the ground, heading straight for Fury. It was the Flame Sovereign King's technique, Bright Sun Flame, and the Dark Flame Devil King's technique, Dark Moon Flame. The Bright Sun Flame and the Dark Moon Flame could be said to be a pair of skills that reinforced and countered each other. When they were used, they looked exactly the same, just that they represented different flames, but their power and effects were completely different. Seeing that Ji-dong was about to launch an attack, Fury raised his right hand and let out a roar. Then, as if he was just grabbing at the air, a ball of blue-purple lightning appeared in his palm. Amidst the blinding blue-purple light, the 7 crowns sun crown appeared with a radiance of lightning. The ball of lightning shot out, ignoring the 2 ultimate flames that were flying close to the ground. Instead, it headed straight for Ji-dong. In the instant that the ball of lightning was released, the air in front of Ji-dong's eyes completely distorted. Even Fury's figure seemed to be distorted. The intent that had been firmly locked onto Fury's body was actually disrupted by the powerful power of lightning, and was instantly broken. The attacks of demonic skills required intent to be guided. How could a demonic skill that had lost its guidance hit its opponent? It was obvious that all of this was caused by the ball of lightning in Fury's hands. With just one attack, the Thunder Emperor had forcefully turned the situation around. Jidong's advantage of being the first to attack was completely gone, and the power of a Seven Crowns Heavenly Master was fully displayed. Faced with this situation, Jidong did not panic. His body did not stop at all, and he continued charging in his original direction. At the same time, he put his hands together, and the bright sun flames and dark moon flames that were flying close to the ground suddenly changed directions, charging towards each other at the same time. In the instant that the two ultimate flames of gold and black suddenly condensed, it was the instant that the ball of lightning flew above them. Boom! An extremely intense explosion sounded on the beach, and a huge pillar of fire soared into the sky, scattering in all directions in a radioactive manner. The ball of lightning that Fury had released had actually exploded in the middle of this huge pillar of fire. Another intense explosion seemed to have assisted it, causing the extreme flames to boil even more violently. The distortion in the air was completely obliterated by this powerful explosive force. Good, the Thunder Emperor Fury shouted, and his figure had already appeared. Jidong had used the combination skill that he had already released to forcefully destroy his heavenly lightning orb. His control of demonic skills and the activation of demonic power had already reached a rather high level. Everything seemed to have happened in an instant. Faced with the impact of the explosion, Jidong did not pause at all. Just as Fury shouted, he had already charged out of the flames and arrived in front of Fury. The spectators could clearly see that when Jidong faced the impact of the explosion, he had gently twisted his body and retracted the wings on his back. His entire body was like a nimble serpent as he darted forward, doing his best to reduce the impact of the impact on his body. His speed actually did not decrease at all. Soaring Serpent could not help but chuckle when he saw this. Without a doubt, what Jidong was using was the strength conversion technique that he had taught him. The situation of the battle had already undergone a subtle change. As Jidong was not affected by the impact in that direction, when he charged in front of Fury, Fury was still resisting the impact. In other words, Fury had to face both the impact of the explosion and Jidong's close-range attack at the same time. When Jidong darted out of the flames, Fury was shocked. However, he was still worthy of being the strongest head disciple in the history of the Yin-Yang Hall. His entire body shone with electric light, and his body shook violently like a divine dragon, shaking off its armor. Countless powerful lightning bolts instantly exploded outwards. Jidong only saw his vision brighten, and the blinding light forced him to close his eyes. However, his left hand, which was covered in sticky black flames, had already reached out. Asterisk crackle. Asterisk with a loud explosion. Fury seemed to have completely transformed into a bolt of lightning. His body shone with a dazzling radiance, and his entire being was like a penetrating bolt of lightning. Jidong's Dark Moon Claw was forcefully repelled, and he only felt a numbness in his hand. Right after that, a huge force had already struck back at him like a landslide or tsunami. The lightning bolts that had instantly appeared on Fury's body seemed to be completely channeled into his body. This was Fury's ultimate offensive and defensive technique, Dazzling Lightning Body. Not only had the shockwave from the previous explosion been completely neutralized by his Dazzling Lightning Body, Jidong's Dark Moon Claw had also been repelled, and the lightning bolts on Fury's body had also crazily enveloped Hyoheim. Once the lightning bolts on the Dazzling Lightning Body had completely invaded one's body, no matter how strong one's strength was, they would at least have to endure 3 seconds of numbness. For the Thunder Emperor, there were at least 100 ways to instantly kill his opponent within 3 seconds. With this Dazzling Lightning Body, Fury had killed countless opponents. Even Yin Zhaorong had once praised it, saying that it was the strongest fatality skill below the sure kill skill. Soaring Snake was already shaking his head, Yin Zhaorong was frowning, and Zhu Yin was even sighing. In their view, the gap in strength was still too great. Only Yin Zhaorong still had that indifferent and calm look on his face, as if he did not care about what was happening in front of him. Even Fury himself had already thought that the battle was over. 7 champions against 4 champions. In his view, such an outcome could not be more normal. It should be known that with his strength of 7 champions, even if he faced an opponent with 8 champions, he would still be able to put up a fight. No matter how much of a genius his little junior brother was, his cultivation was still too far behind. Was it really over? Jidong did not think so. In his view, the battle had only just begun. The strong light was blinding, and his left hand was shaken again. Huge lightning bolts attacked from all directions. Facing all of this, Jidong was not affected in the slightest, nor did he make any movements to defend himself. There was only one reaction he made, and that was to attack. His left hand was shaken, and his right hand, the scorching sun devour, which he was most familiar with, had already erupted with incomparably strong golden flames. At this moment, the yin-yang crown above Jidong's head had already turned into a golden sun crown, and all the fiery light on his body had disappeared in an instant, completely condensing on the point of his right fist. In the 2 spirit designs behind him, the sun fire condensed into a spirit design, and vaguely, there seemed to be the cry of a vermilion bird and phoenix. Fury was stunned for a moment. He did not think that there was any meaning in Jidong's actions. When the lightning entered his body, Jidong's body would definitely be numb, and this attack would still be able to exert its power. Jidong used reality to tell Fury that his thinking was completely wrong. A milky white luster flowed on the vermilion bird's inner armor, and every feather-like scale seemed to have come to life, moving slightly rhythmically. The lightning that enveloped Jidong came into contact with the vermilion bird's inner armor, but was actually reflected and scattered in all directions. Not a single strand of lightning was able to truly penetrate Jidong's body. The dazzling thunder body was indeed a powerful technique, and it could cause the opponent to temporarily lose their vision. It was an offensive and defensive technique, but it had a flaw. In an instant, Jidong discovered this flaw, and that was the scattered nature of the attack. Jidong had never thought that he needed to defend in battle, and only needed to attack. However, this did not mean that he would only attack blindly. After such a long period of cultivation, he had already mastered the vermilion bird transformation like it was his own arm, and he was very clear about the degree of defense that his body could withstand. Although the dazzling thunder body would give him an energy impact, the lightning attribute was not enough to break through the defense of the vermilion bird's inner armor. Fury naturally would not let Jidong's fist land on his body. His right hand crossed in front of his chest, and his palm collided with Jidong's fist. In an instant, Fury's right hand had completely turned a transparent bluish purple. It no longer looked like a palm, but more like a body of energy formed from the condensed lightning attribute. There was a loud explosion. Fury did not move an inch, but Jidong's body was sent flying. In the instant that he was sent flying, he swung his arm and actually dissolved most of the momentum. At the same time, he used his upper body to lift up and kick towards Fury's chin. Fury still only used his right hand, and he slapped down, slapping Jidong's foot away. At the same time, he turned his wrist and clawed at Jidong. With a rumble of thunder, with Fury's body as the starting point, the air behind him had completely turned bluish-purple. On this beach, it was as if a thundercloud had descended. Along with this claw, 5 bolts of lightning resonated and condensed into a giant lightning claw, directly grabbing at Hyoheim's moving body. Compared to the flaming claw that Huang Liming had displayed previously, Fury's attack was much, much stronger. The suction force of the lightning caused Jidong's body to become sluggish in midair. The speed of the lightning was far faster than the flames, and in almost a flash, the lightning claw had already reached Jidong. Zhu Yin swallowed a mouthful of saliva and murmured, "Fury, that kid, has actually become so strong. It seems that even if he doesn't ride on the purple lightning heavenly dragon, I might not be his match." Yin Jiayong glanced at him indifferently. "Is it very honorable?" Zhu Yan's expression froze, and he hurriedly turned his gaze to the battlefield, not daring to speak again. At this moment, the situation that Ji Dong was facing was even more difficult than before. As the lightning claw approached him, it was extremely difficult for him to dodge while he was in the air. However, don't forget that he still had a pair of wings that could relay his movements in the air. The vermilion bird's wings suddenly unfurled. Facing the lightning claw that was even larger than his body, Ji Dong's wings flapped downwards. The sun crown on his head burst out with a dazzling golden light, and he used the force of the wings to spin violently.